So when I say I want to study demonology and I want to get more in depth into it, I don't mean to use demons to my benefit. I don't mean for me to go around and send demons on people or anything like that, or set them free or bring in the Antichrist or any of that. I mean so I can banish them once and for all, so no one is no longer subjugated to these demons or any of these evil thought forms. That's what I would want to do. Because the more I look into this stuff, the more it seems very likely that we are creating thought forms left, right, and center. Now, it's not as simple as putting emotion into one thought one day and then boom, you created some entity that's beside you. It's not that simple. There are people that it can be that simple for, I think, I believe, right down to my core, but, you know, out of the 7 billion, it's a very small percentage, but it doesn't matter. If that small percentage is in a stressful place, then yeah, they could be creating some pretty bad thought forms, and every generation probably has 1% of the generation that could do this power. Therefore, is there any wonder why there's so many people seeing UFOs, there's been so many when there's way more people not seeing them, and you know, so that's what I mean by all that. But back to the Aladdin story, I think that's what that story's trying to tell us, that magic is real. Magic is very real, and you can use thought forms and genies and demons and spirits and angels for your benefit, but you can also use them to your detriment. And, you know, user beware, basically. Don't get into this stuff lightly and think you're going to be the one to change the world or do all noble things or, you know, be the greatest magician alive. Because when you go down the path of ultimate power, you're going to become ultimately corrupted if you're not careful. Like I said, the first thing I did was to make sure I didn't go down the path of demonology because, first of all, I was scared of demons. This is probably the real reason I did that. However, a little part of me, you know, knows that my ego could have taken over and, you know, I could do bad things with good power. And I could do good things with bad power. To me, it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. If a demon has power that we can use for good, then use the fucker, you know? But more than anything, I want to know if there's a way to banish away someone else's thought form. And if so, can we do it? Can it be done? Can I get rid of these 72 poetic demons that people are using? And I'm not saying that because we need to stop using them or whatever. If everybody's using this system and we all are aware of thought forms and we can all reject, banish, deny, then there's really nothing to worry about. But the problem is not everybody can do that. And once again, it's not because I'm trying to save the world or anything, but I want to save my children. I don't want my children to be, you know, around bad thought forms and make mistakes. But in another sense, that's the way this world works. You learn from your mistakes. So, you know, this is just something I've been thinking about recently. It's not like a plan to try to learn to defeat all thought forms because I don't think that's the point. But it just seems so weird and silly that we're creating all these thought forms that no one knows about, and they're just trapped. There's these beings that are trapped in this realm, and it's not their fault what they're doing because they were programmed to do this. You know, it's not fair to them. It's not fair to the people that are, you know, their thoughts are being warped by them. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there. Basically, it's not very much of importance, but it does play into the whole virus thing. You know, the more people that start worrying about this coronavirus happening to them or their loved ones, the more likely that that's going to happen, and it's going to grow, and it's going to wipe out the world, you know? And knowing what I know about accepting, banish, deny, I don't want to be the only fucker here left on the planet, not affected from it, without my wife and my kids, like, you know, so that's the reason I want to know this more than anything, for the disease aspect. It's not necessarily that I want to defeat all demons, but I think through asking and learning about the demons and thought forms, because demons would be a very powerful egregore thought form, right to the point where the Christian religion believes in demons. They believe that magic and all this is carried out by demons. They don't necessarily believe it's not real. Some Christians don't believe magic is real, but for the most part, exorcism has been a big part of Christianity. Therefore, they believe in demons possessing people and the devil being able to possess people to the point where they perform exorcisms. Even in the Quran, if someone is possessed by a genie, there is an exorcism ritual within the Quran. Same with the Old Testament. There's things about possession in there and exorcism is in there. So this is a very real thing to these religions. So they can't dispute that these demons exist and there's a way to get them out of the person. But wouldn't it be more beneficial to just do away with the thing that is possessing people? You know, if the devil and all these things are the root of all evil, well, if we stamp out what causes the root of all evil, then, we can say hence no evil once we stamp that out. So I don't know. I don't believe in good and evil. I believe in self-transformation, and I believe in your own personal responsibility. But I also believe that I probably made thought forms in the past that I may not have done away with yet. Now, I said a long time ago, I don't know, I think it was the end of last year, that you can do sigils and affirmations to say that any thought forms you've made that were not your intention or you weren't aware of, that you get rid of them all. Like, I know that when you make a thought form, you have to put in a kill code. So I don't know if you make a thought form without a kill code, if you can kill them all just by stating that. I retire all you guys that I made by accident. So, if every magician was to do that, well, then we'd have a lot less thought forms, but we'd be still far from perfect, But anyways, so that's going to require a little more study on my behalf. All right, so after that whole Aladdin little explanation and topic and whatever, like I said, before going any further, I don't want to save the world and I don't want to banish demons and all that. It was just a thought that came to me, like the whole freeing the genie thing was a pretty cool thing, and Monster High has the same concept where they free Gigi. You see that often in these stories, and so it's just something that comes to mind. It's like, well, we use these spirits, and someone demonized them, and if you go further back, and you look at Astaroth, who used to be Astarte, which is Venus. So it's like, are they demons? Are they actually locked as demons? Is it an aspect? Because Venus is up there in the sky. Is she stuck there because of us demonizing her and she's no longer free to go places? Like, we have these old stories about how Mercury used to be able to really roam around, but now he was stuck where he is, just being able to orbit the sun. And it's just a thought. So I don't want anybody to think I'm being controversial or even crazy, because a lot of the things I'm saying nowadays, maybe I'm going too far. Maybe I'm going in too deep with my thoughts and all that. Maybe I should keep this shit to myself. But I like throwing ideas out there because I don't think I'm the only one that might think these things. And maybe I am sometimes the first one that thinks of them, or at least the first one out of the people listening to me that thinks them. But I believe that some people listening to me might be able to take these ideas even further, go beyond, and actually come up with solutions and, more creative ways to use my knowledge. And that's kind of what I hope. And, even if it's not the people listening to me now, maybe down the line when, because occultism, esotericism, New Age stuff, planets, astrology, and all these old religions are all coming back. So, to me, I don't know how it works. I don't know, because, if these demons are real and Solomon sealed them in the brass vessel for a reason, and the only time you can access them and they can wreak havoc on you is if you openly welcome them in, like a vampire and shit like that, well, then there's really nothing to worry about. However, I don't think that's the case. I think it's more likely that someone else already released them, or, they were never really locked up, and I got nothing against Solomon, the story, or anything. I just tend to take these old stories at face value, that they're a story and they're not actually something that historically happened. Okay? It's something to warn us about working with any spirit that comes through. But in the same sense, I've always had the belief that you don't need to work with demons. Well, when I started studying thought forms, I learned you don't have to work with demons, because you can create your own thought form and program its job to find you a specific type of knowledge or give you a specific skill set, find you money. It doesn't matter. The sky's the limit. If you create this being correctly and do the correct steps and power it, energize it, it will go out there and get you this knowledge. Therefore, well, going against what I say, but the thought form I talked about previously, the one I was creating, was such a thought form. It was going out to get me this knowledge, to see if there is a way to, I've done divination for different things like this, and I get yes but complicated answers, but normally circle around the yes, meaning you can get rid of thought forms, but it's not something you want to take lightly. It's not something, because there's a lot of people that believe in a thought form called the Yahweh or God, which is such a generic term. It's the wrong term to use for something a whole religion's around, but makes sense when you're in an occult, when you practice occultism or magic, when you realize that most people don't believe in what we believe in, and they believe in a God. Well, yeah, of course, everybody believes in a God, but what God are you talking about? No, I believe in God, the Lord. Well, Lord just means, a Lord was what kings had the term to, you can call a priest, or not a priest, you can call a priest that too, but a Lord was somebody of royalty back in the day. It's not something you would call God, you know what I mean? Your lordship. You can call that to a judge, for God's sakes. Your worship. You know what I mean? These are words we use for in Christian and I don't know about Islamic, but in Judaism, well, I don't know much about Judaism either. Like, I know a lot, so study-wise, but I've never been in that religion and know how they say things. I can only go by what I see, and by what you see is not always accurate, so I'll leave it at that. But the point is, that's a very generic term. God's going to come get you. Well, which fucking one? So I know. You know what I mean? Well, I'm sending God at you, or God's going to protect me. Well, which one? You can't just say God. Or was that the point? Because there are many gods, therefore they're not wrong when they say God's got my back. So at least one God might have their back. You know what I mean? This is just little jokes I'm making, but the point is, you know, through my divination, I was getting answers, but nothing clear. And, you know, you can ask questions and get answers, but you don't necessarily get information that you can channel, that you receive in dreams, like when I use thought forms. This is how I get answers from my thought forms. Because when I don't use thought forms, I don't get those answers specifically like the same way. So that's how I know. But point is, I can send a thought form out, and that's its job, is to find out if I can, you know, take out other thought forms. And, you know, as a secondary job, I want to know more about coronavirus, cancer, and the thought forms behind them. If there's different names associated to them that I need to know in this banishment of it, because, you know, if you're a smart person and you create a thought form, well, you can create the programming, meaning everybody that says I hate cancer fuels your thought form, but your thought form's name isn't actually cancer. And if the thought form is created by somebody else without their kill code, you can't kill it. So I already know all this. So, I mean, that could be a moot point. If this thing was created intentionally, let's say, like coronavirus, for example, or cancer, or, you know, I won't say AIDS because there's a lot of controversy around AIDS, but, you know, any other sickness, disease, infection, you know, bacterial, you know, whatever the case is, okay? If there is some kind of thought form out there fueling and keeping this disease going, you know, and if it's not created by another magician or someone who understands this that has a kill code, okay, can it be destroyed? Is kind of what I was working on that day. And then that's why when I saw the video about coronavirus from the guy I was going to get the checklist for the thought forms, I thought it was pretty fucking cool. Pretty funny fucking synchronicity that tells me, you know what, Corey, as crazy as you think this idea is, and when you tell people how crazy they're going to think it is, you're on the right path, bro. That's what it told me. And, you know, you can take that for what it is, but I'm just telling you, that's where I aim my magic on right now. It's not so much, it's on my self-transformation. It's on money when I need to, you know, maybe make my wife happy and shit like that, just to keep proving to her that, you know, it's not hard to do money magic, but it's not what I care about anymore. We have a house, we got cars, we got kids, we got health. Like, what more do you need? Do you need to keep getting more money? Like, I don't. I really don't. It's not my necessity anymore. Yeah, I could be rich and stay at home, but what happens if I don't go to work every day and I'm at home and all I'm doing is making fucking podcasts all day long? I'm going to get bored. And, you know, me getting bored could mean me doing drugs or, you know, any other ways of self-destruction. So for now, I'll keep working this way. I keep getting money, and then eventually when I have a better way to make money, that doing something I enjoy where drugs would, and getting high and getting drunk would be so minor in comparison to how much I enjoy doing what I do, that then that's when I'll stop working. Like, I'm at that level of consciousness now, you know what I mean? And it's not to toot my own horn, it's not to say I'm better than anybody, because not everybody's like me. Not everybody's been a drug addict. So someone who's not a drug addict could stay home and manifest money left, right, and center, be a stay-at-home dad, and do what I was trying to teach people to do in the beginning. That's what I was promoting when I first started this thing. That through magic, you can write things into your reality and be able to stay at home with your children and manifest money. It's not hard. But, you know, if you're a drug addict, then you might not be able to do that because the money you're going to use to pay your bills and have your freedom, you're not going to have much extra money because you're going to be spending it on dope, and then you're going to be struggling to pay your bills, and then you're going to have to eventually go back to work. So, you know, you might want to focus your magic on getting clean first and then go forward. But the point is, I don't want anybody to think, you know, I'm doing this and anybody should jump on the bandwagon and try to do this as well. I'm still in the whole idea phase and trying to figure things out. Like I said, even addiction, for God's sakes, could be fueled by something like this. You know, there's a reason they drop opiates like mad, and they're making new opiates, painkillers all the time, and they're testing new ones, and they have all these new clinics where people can go try out these drugs, you know, for like 2 weeks at a time and get paid like 10 grand. I mean, there's a study in Montreal that does that right now. Maybe it's not 10 grand, but it's pretty good for the 2 weeks or the month period. It's way more than you would make on any job, you know what I mean? So, and what, do you get addicted? Do you get side effects? Could you die? Like, what are these programs, and why do they need to trust drugs, and why is it always young people they want, you know, between like college to fucking early 30s, you know? And, you know, I'm not saying this is bad, because this could be good to try to help the people that are addicted to drugs, because these are probably prominently the age groups that are addicted to drugs. But anyways, all that just to say that I don't want anybody, I've already had a whole episode, I think, on coronavirus or any viruses or the wars and shit like that. Actually, you know, I don't think I did one on coronavirus, but point is, don't fear it. If you get thoughts in your head that you're worried about it, or what if my kids get this, or what if this happens, or what if this happens, you banish that thought right away. That's your first line of defense, and it's probably the best one. All right? Because whether it's a spiritual thought form attacking you, and then it turns into physical, or it's something physical you catch first, and then, you know, it fucks with your mind to make it worse, it doesn't matter. Chicken and the egg. Banish the thought, keep yourself healthy. Banish the thought, keep yourself healthy, and you've got nothing to worry about. Absolutely nothing to worry about. There is way worse things here in Canada, for example, probably the States, than coronavirus you need to worry about. I just had first aid training at my work. My furnace has been down, so they're finding ways to keep us working without actually working so we don't run out of space. And we all got first aid training. And I come to find out that that was exactly what my first aid guy trained me. Now, he wasn't in magic or awakened as far as I could tell, but he was a firefighter, and he was teaching first aid, and, you know, he sells first aid equipment as well. He's got multiple different areas where he's helping people that are hurt, injured, whatever. He's a first responder to the core, basically. So he's a noble man who puts others before himself, you know? So you don't have to be magic to do that. And he's reaping the benefits because he's got a pretty comfortable and a good life. He doesn't have to be awake to have that because of what he's doing. And this is just proof of what I'm saying. You can work a 9 to 5 and be nice to everybody on the street, but you're not necessarily putting anybody above yourself. And I'm not saying you have to be poor to be holy to get in heaven. That's the Christian idea of that, okay? And I'm not saying that at all. And I'm also not saying if someone comes and robs your house, you hand them the fucking TV. Because no, you hand them a hammer, but you hand it to their fucking skull and crack the bitch, you know what I mean? And then you call the fucking police or put him off your property and see if he comes back, and this time you got 2 hammers or maybe a gun or a machete. But what I'm saying is when you can afford to and you can help another person, and it doesn't have to be with money. Money's probably the worst way to help people nowadays because they'll just piss it away and ask for more. But going out of your way to give people rides, you know, and you can say that's money because it's gas, and you might be right, but, you know, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, an extra $5 here and there, is it going to kill you? You know, you set boundaries. You don't let people take advantage of you. It's a test for you. If you're the person that gives people rides too much and you shouldn't be, well, then you're going to need to tell people no more than you're going to need to tell them yes. But if you're somebody who doesn't help anybody at all, well, that guy you don't like at work who always bugging people for rides and you're the last one to give him a ride, go give him a fucking ride. Show a little bit of courtesy and see what happens to you by doing that. You know, a little bit of gratitude and helping somebody who, you know, he might be a dirtbag, he might do dope, he might not respect people, he might throw people under the bus, he might do all that bad shit. And you can keep doing bad shit to him so he can keep hating and doing bad shit to other people. Or you can make his opinion about you wrong and give him a hand. And then you're not giving him money, you're not hurting anything else, but that a little bit of kindness will help. And that's leaving the world in a better place. And you didn't have to give a bunch of money where you can't pay your bills. You didn't allow someone to hurt your family. So this is not a New Age or Christian idea of you need to be broke and let people walk all over you so you can go to heaven, so you don't break the commandments. It's not that at all. I don't believe in that. I believe in personal responsibility. I believe in that you are probably a dick to more people than you've been nice to people. So try evening that out a bit and showing gratitude for the things you have. And that alone is magic enough to change your fucking life. Likewise, if you think you have any powers that you may have created bad thought forms or created psychic attack to people, or maybe did it to people and you regret it, well then try reversing it is all I'm saying. And I think I have responsibility for any thought forms that I may have created to get rid of. Likewise, what I think I know about these topics, that I'm talking about coronavirus being a thought form and cancer being a thought form, well then, if I'm really serious about knowing that, wouldn't it be my job to actually find out if what I'm saying is accurate? Because I'm telling people that. So I'm creating a thought form that this thought form is correct, technically. So it's my responsibility to figure out if that's real, and if it can be vanquished, to vanquish it. And not from a perspective of trying to get rid of people's egregores, just so they can't affect people, because sometimes these bad servitors, egregores, God, the God of the Bible has helped more people transform their life than Christians. I don't know how I'm going to word that, but the point is, because the Bible and the Christians and the priests, okay, because of the way it's going and the answers and how it doesn't really apply to today, and they're not finding the right correspondences, because I'm telling you right now, if I was to dive into there or be a priest or something like that, I could probably find hipper, better ways to keep Christians. I don't think I'd be able to keep them regardless, but they probably wouldn't be falling out as far along as they are. You got to get creative with this shit. When you're too stuck in the past and the old ways, well, you're going to die with those old ways. The only constant is change, right? So why does the same religions have to stay the same if the only constant is change? Why can't the religions change? Why can't the spiritualities change? Why can't people be their own spirituality? But anyways, that's different than what I was trying to say. But point is, I think I have a moral responsibility. If I'm going to come out here and tell people what I think is, to find out if that is. I can make speculation episodes and state that they're speculation episodes, and that's all fine, but I'm curious if that's the real thing. I shoot these ideas out here, but every time I shoot an idea out here, I want you to know that I actually look into it. I use magical ways to try to prove what I'm saying. I use actual fact to prove what I'm saying, which is very hard with spiritual and thought forms, but point is, thought forms are very real, and they're not a thing to be afraid of when you're a magician, but the point is, you can see how it affects people, because as many thought forms as we can create to transform people, which is not our call and we don't do. It's not our job to transform people. They're supposed to get transformed themselves. But there's evil entities out there trying to keep them in fear to stay in the Christian religions and other religions and be scared of this stuff. But eventually at a certain point, a person stops believing in that and they just, well, you know what if it happens? And then it's really that thought form that eventually provoked them to change. So in a way, maybe it's something I should leave alone. So that's why I'm just making it clear that I'm not going to go actually try to vanquish all thought forms or anything like that, because that could do more damage than good as well. So I just want people to be aware of how serious it could be to put emotion into your fearful thoughts. And likewise, accepting the shitty thoughts of your life could have some major consequences. And, the Aladdin story is a good representation of that. And this is just the Disney version. It's not the version where, if he rubbed his ring and it was like a protection ward / evocation that he does, and then the Jinn comes out and then he is able to control that Jinn. And then, the evil sorcerer ends up, I don't know if he got the lamp or whatever, but he ends up making another ring, and because he didn't know, either he didn't know that could happen or whatever, but he ends up getting a Jinn anyways. So the way I understood it, and it could be wrong because it's a long time since I've listened to the summarized version of that story. I'm not going to lie, I didn't read the whole Aladdin first original story, but maybe I should. But the way I interpreted it was something to the effect of, that guy wanted the lamp for whatever reason. It was kind of unclear to me, or it is at least now. He gave him that ring for protection. Within that ring had a genie, okay? The genie, or the Jinn rather. Jinn is supposed to be plural, and genie would be singular, but, Jinn and genie are kind of interchangeable when you're talking about esoteric Arabia places, Arabian Nights, that kind of shit, that kind of place. It got stamped out by Islam, like I already said, but anyways, that evil sorcerer ends up either dies and then his brother's an even worse sorcerer, so he creates a ring, a genie, and then these two genies go to fucking fight or whatever. But then Aladdin starts to outsmart him, even though he has his genie with him on his side. That genie's not as powerful as the other genie. But it's either the first sorcerer who creates his ring, since now he knows he can make a genie, or he always knew he had that capability, and it wasn't even about the whole genie thing. And it was about whatever that lamp was for. So the genie pales in comparison to that fucking lamp, is what I understood, is what I take away. As you can tell, the details on if it's Jafar, who is the bad sorcerer, or if Jafar dies and his brother, who's an even worse sorcerer, makes his own genie and attacks him. But the point is, I think the lamp had more power for something else, because the sorcerer wanted it, and clearly he can make his own genies, because he made him the ring, gave him the ring for protection. When he rubbed on the ring, the genie came out. So maybe he didn't know, maybe he did know, but then he either found out he can make a genie after, or he already knew and he made an even better genie from a ring. Point is, that wasn't what they were going for in the original story, but Disney took the whole genie. Well, one genie's enough, man. Holy fuck. What do we do? That's not the point of the story. We're trying to show people that, behind the dogmatic religions, there's magic behind there. But the reason we don't release magic to the world is because don't cast pearls before fucking swine. Because look, out of these two people, out of the bad guy and the good guy, one of them wins and one of them fucking turns into a genie and stuck in a lamp. It's not for everybody. If everybody in the town knew of this power, it would be absolute chaos, because people are probably more bad than good when it comes to power. But through that power, some people change and some people don't. But sometimes it's easier to get the person to change before they get the power. I think most of the time it's better to get the person to change before the power. So if you're into magic and you made manifestations but you still haven't got your big payday yet, well, that might be one of the reasons, because you haven't completely transformed. Because if you're an ex-drug user or gambler, or someone who's very impulsive, or an eating disorder, or you just lost weight because you were overweight, or you're now overweight because you lost control of your eating, or you're not exercising anymore, well, what makes you getting a lot of money is going to do you any good right now? If you can't control your eating, or your gambling, or your drug use, or your buying, or whatever the case is, you know what I mean? Therefore, it's better to transform before you get that. Therefore, if you do your transformation before you get the power, then you're better off, because if you get the power before your transformation, you become Jafar. And you don't want to be that fucker, okay? So anyways, I'm going to end it there for today. I think that's enough. Probably not my greatest episode ever made, but I think there's something important in here. If I didn't say it explicitly, you'll figure it out. But anyways, I'm pretty sure I was explicit about a couple things. But anyways, like always, have yourself a great fucking Saturn day. Have a good day.
It's not the sexiest conversation.
Are we in?
I think here's the strongest argument for us being in a simulation, probably being in a simulation, I think is the following. That 40 years ago, we had Pong, like two rectangles and a dot. That was what games were. Now, 40 years later, we have photorealistic 3D simulations with millions of people playing simultaneously, and it's getting better every year. And soon we'll have virtual reality, augmented reality. If you assume any improvement at all, then the games will become indistinguishable from reality. Just indistinguishable.
And this is where magic comes in, because through magic and connecting with the God force and building our energies, we're actually linking up to the source, to the creator, and by that we will be executing the laws of creation and manifestation. And that's the advantage of practicing magic, linking up spiritually, is through this connection to the source. And by doing this and by developing our magical skills therein, as we progress, we are in effect securing our immortality.
And Zeilinger has proven that no matter how extreme its predictions, quantum theory works, even though it shouldn't. And perhaps the ultimate proof of just how unsettling quantum mechanics can be is something called the double-slit experiment. It will make you question whether reality exists at all. This simple configuration shoots particles of light called photons, one at a time, through two tiny slits in a screen.
We have a laser which produces light. This light is attenuated such that only one photon at a time emerges. This photon passes through a two-slit assembly, and then we have a camera which registers the pattern behind the two-slit assembly. So what we see is that the photons arrive one by one on the screen, some here, some there, and it looks pretty random.
Since the photons travel one by one, some through this slit, some through that slit, you would expect them to leave a pattern of two stripes on the wall. And you would be wrong. They mysteriously create a band of stripes. This is what you would expect to see if a constant beam of light shined through the two slits. It would spread across the wall like a wave. So how can single bullet-like particles of light create a wave pattern? This could only happen if the particles go through both slits at the same time. In other words, the particle is in two places at once. But strangest of all is what happens when you put detectors next to the slits. When the photons are being watched, the wave pattern disappears. Take away the detectors, and the wave pattern comes back. This suggests that we can change the way reality behaves just by looking at it. Does this mean that reality itself is not real?
The modern answer is that the path taken by the photon is not an element of reality. We are not allowed to talk about the photon passing through this or this slit. Neither are we allowed to say that the photons pass through both slits. All this kind of language is not applicable.
So, do we just keep reaping the benefits from quantum mechanics and accept that deep down, nature plays by a set of rules that will forever remain a mystery?
The interesting message here is that we have quantum physics now around for nearly 100 years, and we are still working at the foundations. And that tells me that when we found it, it will be an absolute revelation. It will be something different from what we have been thinking.
If the quantum theorists are correct, we will never understand the fundamental level of the universe. Our hopes of finding an ultimate theory will fail, and the human race will hit a roadblock it can't break through. But what if they're wrong? What if the truth about what happens deep inside you, me, and everything else in the universe is there, if we're willing to look for it?
So getting back to the original question, is the universe and are we living in a computer simulation?
Oh, fuck, I just do one fucking thing. I had that cock sucking fuck.
And here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness, the infamous double-slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So, when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this, two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So, they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits, and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one, and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. But physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched. And it was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange, never world of quantum events. What is matter? Marbles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this? The observer collapsed the wave function simply by observing.
How do you learn a subject or skill in half the time? Let's do this together. I want you to right now think of a...
This episode is supported by the Great Courses Plus. One of the strangest experimental results ever observed has got to be that of the single particle double slit experiment. It's one of the most stunning illustrations of how the quantum world is very, very different from the large-scale world of our physical intuition. In fact, it hints that the fundamental nature of reality may not be physical at all, at least in any sense that we're familiar with. Let's start with the familiar. In fact, let's start with a rubber ducky. It bobs up and down in a pool, causing periodic ripples to spread out. Some distance away, those waves encounter a barrier with two gaps cut in it. Most of the wave is blocked, but ripples pass through the gaps. When the new ripples start to overlap each other, they produce this really cool pattern. It's called an interference pattern. It's due to the fact that in some places, the peak of the ripple from one gap stacks on top of the peak from the other gap, making a more extreme peak. You also get more extreme dips when two troughs overlap. We call this constructive interference. But when the peak from one wave encounters the trough from another, they cancel out, leaving nothing. Destructive interference. So we have these alternating tracks of wavy and flat water. Any type of wave should make an interference pattern like this. For example, water waves and sound waves, but also light waves. This double-slit interference of light was first observed by Thomas Young back in 1801. A source of light passing through two very thin slits produces bands of light and dark stripes, alternating regions of constructive and destructive interference on a screen. Of course, we now know that light is a wave in the electromagnetic field, thanks to the work of James Clerk Maxwell a century later. So it makes perfect sense that it should produce an interference pattern, right? But wait. We also know that light comes in indivisible little bundles of electromagnetic energy called photons. Einstein demonstrated this through the photoelectric effect, but his clue came from the quantized energy levels of Max Planck's blackbody radiation law. Check out our episode on this for the details. Okay, so each photon is a little bundle of waves of electromagnetic field, and each bundle can't be broken into smaller parts. That means that each photon should have to decide whether it's going to go through one slit or the other. It can't split in half and then recombine on the other side. That shouldn't be a problem as long as you have at least two photons. One photon passes through each slit, and then the two photons interact with each other on the other side and produce our interference pattern. But here, we get to one of the craziest experimental results in all of physics. The interference pattern is seen even if you fire those photons one at a time. Well, let me back up a bit. The first photon is detected as having arrived at a very particular location on the screen. The second, third, and fourth photons also. They deliver their energy at a single spot, and so they appear to be acting like particles of well-determined position. But check it out. If you keep firing those single photons, you start to see our interference pattern emerge once again. By the way, Veritasium actually conducts this experiment in his excellent series on the double-slit experiment. Really worth a look. This is so bizarre. This pattern has nothing to do with how each photon's energy gets spread out, as was the case with the water wave. Each photon dumps all of its energy at a single point. No, the pattern emerges in the distribution of final positions of many completely unrelated photons. How can that be? Each photon has no idea where previous photons landed or where future photons will land. Yet each photon reaches the screen knowing which regions are the most likely landing spots and which are the least likely. It knows the interference pattern of a pure wave that passed through both slits equally, and it chooses its landing point based on that. It turns out that the photon isn't the only thing that does this. Shoot a single electron through a pair of slits and it'll also appear to land at a single spot on the screen, but fire many electrons and they slowly build up the same sort of interference pattern. This crazy effect has even been observed with whole atoms, even whole molecules. Buckminster fullerene. Buckyballs are gigantic spherical molecules of 60 carbon atoms and have been observed to produce double-slit interference under special conditions. We have to conclude that each individual photon, electron or buckyball travels through both slits as some sort of wave. That wave then interacts with itself to produce an interference pattern. Except that here the peaks of that pattern are regions where there's more chance that the particle will find itself. It looks like a wave of possible undefined positions that at some point, for some reason, resolves itself into a single certain position. We also saw this waviness in position when we talked about quantum tunneling. In fact, several quantum properties like momentum, energy, and spin all display similar waviness in different situations. We call the mathematical description of this wave-like distribution of properties a wave function. Describing the behavior of the wave function is the heart of quantum mechanics. But what does the wave function represent? What are these waves of, or waves in? Let's start with what we do know about the double-slit result. We know where the particle is at both ends. It starts its journey wherever we put the laser, or electron gun, or buckyball trebuchet, and it releases its energy at a well-defined spot on the screen. So the particle seems to be more particle-like at either end, but wave-like in between. That wave holds the information about all the possible final positions of the particle, but also about its possible positions at every stage in the journey. In fact, the wave must map out all possible paths that the particle could take. We have this family of could-be trajectories from start to finish. And for some reason, when the wave reaches the screen, it chooses a final location. And that implies choosing from these possible paths. So what causes this transition between a wave of many possibilities and a well-defined thing at a particular spot? Within that mysterious span between the creation and the detection, is the particle anything more than a space of possibility? Okay, we're adding more questions than we're answering. We still didn't figure out what the wave is made of. In fact, the answers aren't known, but the various interpretations of quantum mechanics do try. Let's talk about the view favoured by Werner Heisenberg and Niels Bohr, who pioneered quantum mechanics at the University of Copenhagen in the 1920s. The Copenhagen interpretation says that the wave function doesn't have a physical nature. Instead, it's comprised of pure possibility. It suggests that a particle traversing the double-slit experiment exists only as a wave of possible locations that ultimately encompasses all possible paths. It's only when the particle is detected that a location and the path it took to get there are decided. The Copenhagen interpretation calls this transition from a possibility space to a defined set of properties the collapse of the wave function. It tells us that prior to the collapse, it's meaningless to try to define a particle's properties. It's almost like the universe is allowing all possibilities to exist simultaneously, but holds off choosing which actually happened until the last instant. Weirder, those different possible paths, those different possible realities, interact with each other. That interaction increases the chance that some paths become real and decreases the chance of others. There's an interaction between possible realities that is seen in the distribution of final positions, in the interference pattern. That pattern is real, even though the vast majority of paths involved in producing the interference never attain reality. In the Copenhagen interpretation, that final choice of the experiment, of the universe, is fundamentally random, within the constraints of the final wave function. The theory of quantum mechanics produces stunningly accurate predictions of reality, and it's completely consistent with the Copenhagen interpretation. But this is not the only interpretation that works. There are interpretations that give the wave function a physical reality. Remember, we know that light is a wave in the electromagnetic field, and quantum field theory tells us that all fundamental particles are waves in their own fields. This may give us a more physical medium that drives these waves of possibility. And if you thought the Copenhagen interpretation was freaky, wait till we get to the many worlds interpretation, which we will, right here on Spacetime. Thanks to the Great Courses Plus for sponsoring this episode. The Great Courses Plus is a service that allows you to learn about a range of topics from educators, including Ivy League.
Quantum mechanics existed because of this experiment. It's a very famous experiment, and it's called the double-slit experiment. For many years, scientists knew that if you put light through two slits in a barrier, that you would get this diffraction pattern. What would happen is some of the light would go through this slit, some of the light would go through this slit, and then the light would interfere with each other. The way it interfered is that the distance between here and that point and the distance between here and that point from the two slits had to be some integral number of wavelengths so that the wavelengths got there in phase. And when they did, you'd get some light. And when they didn't, when they got out of phase, you got nothing. You got dark spots in between them. Okay, so this was an experiment, well known, done many times, diffraction grating. And then Einstein came along and studied the light hitting things and knocking out electrons, okay? Yeah, photoelectric effect. He was studying that, and he realized that light looked like a particle. It seemed to always have some integer number of chunks of momentum. It came with little chunks of momentum, just like particles. So he said, light's a particle. And his theory supported that. Well, that made a big question. Well, if light's a particle, particles we know, they go through slits. They just travel in straight lines unless interacted on by an exterior force, right? Newton told us that. And they would put a little spot of light behind that slit and a little spot of light behind that spot. That's what a particle would do. So if light's particles, how do we get this? So they decided, let's test this out. They were very clever, found a way to fire one photon at a time at these slits. So they fired a photon. Of course, one photon isn't enough to measure, particularly in those days. So they actually fired thousands, but they only fired them one at a time. So only one photon at a time interacted with these slits. And what do you think they got? Did they get this or this? Well, they got this. They got a diffraction pattern. Now, how was that? You were sending particles in these slits, and you got this diffraction pattern. Well, they didn't understand that very well. So they said, well, let's look and see what's going on at those slits. So these little red things are symbolizing detectors. So they put photon detectors there and said, let's see what's happening at the slit. And when they did, sure enough, they occasionally, when the photon got fired, they'd find that it would go through this slit. And when it did, they'd get a little thing from their detector. And when it did, it'd go straight through, just like Newton said, and stop right at the back behind the slit. And when one went through this slit, it would stop right there, and they got this pattern. So then it was thinking, well, it's the detectors are making the difference. When we detect it, we get this, and we don't detect it, we get this. So whether it was by just luck or whether it's because they were clever, I don't know. But fortunately, one of them decided to leave the detectors on, because if they turned off the detectors entirely, of course, they got this. And the idea was, well, the detectors are interfering. So somebody decided to leave the detectors on, but just not take any data. In other words, the detectors were there detecting, but they just weren't collecting any data. So if it was, let's say, going to a magnetic tape, then there was no magnetic tape loaded. Okay, the head of the tape was still showing what the detector said. The head of the tape was still oscillating because the detectors were working. The detectors were still detecting. Well, what do you think happened? They got this. So they got the diffraction pattern. Okay? So what it turned out was that if they looked, if they collected the data, okay, then they get this. If they didn't collect the data and they weren't looking, they got this. That let them know that it was the actual conscious act of taking the data that made the difference as to whether light was a wave or light was a particle. Well, that was a really big deal. Okay, suddenly, life wasn't clear anymore. It had been real clear up to that time, and it wasn't clear. Okay, go to the next one. Here's how that works. a bright young guy named Erwin Schrödinger, German. He was a graduate student, and if you'll notice in physics, most of the big breakthroughs occur with young people because they haven't been in the system long enough to understand what's impossible. So they're still open-minded. They can still think out of the box because they haven't gotten educated enough not to be able to do that. So what he said is, well, look, these things come through here one at a time. The photon obviously can't break up into pieces. You know, a photon's a photon. So it must be going through here, and some of the time it goes up here, which was a smaller spot. Some of the time it goes, each one of those photons must somehow pick a place to go, but it always picks one of these spots and never picks the spaces in between. So what he would do is, he said, well, let's say that this photon's really not a photon at all. It's just probability distribution. Now, by that, I don't mean that the photon is somewhere and we just don't know where, and that's the probability of where it is. I mean that the photon doesn't exist as a particle. It's a probability distribution. So, given that it's a probability distribution, some of the probability goes through that hole, some of the probability goes through that hole. In other words, the probability is that some of it could go here. There's a certain amount of probability that goes here. The probability then interferes with itself like a wave, and you get this pattern. Well, when he did that with the math, of course it worked, and he got the pattern, and the physicists of the day looked at it and shook their heads, the graduate students. You know, I mean, okay, you got the answer, but it doesn't make any sense. Well, then they took his methodology and they applied it to other things at the day, and guess what? It got the right answers there too. And it kept getting right answers. So physicists had to take it seriously, even though it didn't make any sense. Quantum mechanics now.
Coffee. Inspired by the year the Folger.
And I hope you're all having a great start to the weekend. Okay, today's topic is all about the Jinn, meaning the genie, not gin the drink, but the genie, those ancient magical spirit beings from the ancient Arabic world. Now, there seems to be a rising interest in Arabic magic originating well before the restrictive Islamic religion took hold of the region. And the Islamic religion attempted to purge natural magic out of its lands. But before this happened, there was a lot of magic going on. And today, we're going to travel and take a look at the mysterious beginnings of occult science in Arabia. We will take a quick but fascinating look at the powerful magical Jinn, also known as the Genie, and then dive deeper into the mysterious realm of magic. So let's dive in and take a closer look. So, Genie or Jinn? There are so many spellings. So probably the first thing you think of when hearing that, if you're in the West at least, would be of rubbing a lamp and then some gigantic blue humanoid spirit-like apparition emerging in a puff of mystical smoke that sounded something like Robin Williams on coke, right? But that is not at all what Jinn are. The Jinn we know in pop culture and pop art are not the Jinn of ancient folklore or of various religious practices that predate Islam. Instead of this friendly, gregarious, quizzical character that for some reason is bound to a lamp, the world of Jinn is fairly vast and a very varied one. And the Jinn, just like human beings, have free will. They actually do. Therefore, naturally, some are good and some are not so good. Some are actually quite bad. Some are merely unpredictable or quirky as well. And we see regional variations too throughout relevant history in the way that Jinn were treated by human beings at that time. If we examine the etymology of the word Jinn, Jinn would be the plural, and Jinni or Genie would be the singular. And also, it is important to note that the same root word is related to the idea of genius, which goes back to Greco-Roman times, but is not actually in reference to intellect at all. The belief in the existence of the Jinn is very old, and as I mentioned before, it predates Islamic culture by several centuries at the very least. In ancient times, before people were forced to practice this Islamic religion, liberal pagan cultures in the region had already believed in the magical beings known as Jinn or Genie. These beliefs varied, and in some parts they didn't believe in them as being just another form of life created by God along with man and along with angels. They instead believed in Jinn as tributary spirits. In some parts of the world they were venerated like ancestors were venerated. In other parts they were treated as demigods or nature spirits of some sort. And then still in other parts they were vilified as demons. And yet still sometimes in other areas they were even thought of and regarded as being guardians of a place similar to the benevolent fairies that we find in Western culture and folklore. So we know all this is true because there has been found sufficient archaeological evidence to support what I've just stated. One excellent example is in Palmyra in southern Arabia, where we hear of the anonymous guardian spirits of the local community and the ancestor spirits of the family. These were referred to as the son of their ancestors. In North Arabia, there were beings referred to as Genie, who are spoken of in an inscription from the environs of Palmyra, or Palmyra, depending on your preference for the semantical pronunciation. Alright, now the Genie of the village of Beth Faziel, the good and rewarding gods, probably related to these, and are other jinn who feature in accounts of Western Central Arabia. Now this is taken from Robert G. Hoyland's book, Arabia and the Arabs. The Quran, which took the creation myth concept partly from Christianity, which was several centuries older already, and partly from local pagan communities, which were even more ancient. In the creation story, we find that God makes man out of clay. We also see a curious passage that states that the jinn were also formed partly out of a scorchless, smokeless fire. Now this is key. Now, not all jinn are the same. This is something we have to make clear. And they are not all created equal, like humans. Same thing. Humans were not created equal. They also had a society just like we had. They had courts, they had relationships, marriages. They were even fooling around with humans, reputedly. And jinn could also have different power levels, just like they could have different alignments on the good to evil scale too. So it's a mix. The most potent jinn are the ones that the genie stories we know of so well are based on. The ones that could do things for you upon command. These were initially thought, oddly enough, to be mostly evil, and also were regarded as the most powerful of all the jinn. The whole magic lamp idea that got carried into Western stories and then applied to all jinn comes due to a mistranslation of a telling of the story of Aladdin or Aladdin. If you actually read the story in the original form, a sorcerer sends Aladdin into a cave and gives him a ring for protection, as he is supposed to find this unique lamp. But it is already known that it's a dangerous thing to do, so he has been given this ring to protect himself from attack. And while he's in this cave, he begins to feel fear and starts to worry a little. So in order to soothe his tensions, he starts rubbing his hands together, and by doing so, rubs the magic ring, and poof, a jinn appears. And because of this magical ring, he can command and control the jinn essentially. So what he's actually done is an evocation. Now we hear a similar story when we read about King Solomon. Solomon was reputedly able to command the jinn, what we refer to as Goetia or Goetic spirit, with a specially crafted magical ring, among other protections. Does this sound familiar to you? It should. There's another creature that comes to mind from this jinn belief that found its way to the West, and it's once again due to a simple mistranslation on the road, so to speak. It's a type of jinn called a ghoul, and you might recognize that it is similar to what we know so well as a ghoul. Okay, so ghoul, G-H-U-L, and ghoul, G-H-O-U-L. So this evil jinn forms the basis of our monster that is so familiar to us from horror films or spooky stories, or if you're a comic book fan, from the old DC comic book Tales of the Script stories, where a ghoul was always inexplicably showing up to eat things. Ghouls that devour people. Okay, so this is where it comes from. And speaking about horror movies, by the way, let's talk about possession. Now, jinn are thought to be able to possess any human being. Man, woman, children, all of them. But in this case, the possessor's age and what type of demon, what type of jinn, evil or good, is in dispute. Now, these jinn can only be driven out using an exorcism ritual called rudka, which uses the recitation of passages found in the Quran, similar to how Christian exorcisms are performed using the Bible. In the modern world, the belief in the jinn persists. This belief is not buried in the ancient world merely as part of folklore, but continues to this day through ardent believers. And there are several current universities that study, and also certain academics at these universities who are attempting to apply modern science to prove the existence of jinn. Now, they do this through various applications of contemporary science, interestingly enough. So there we have it, all about the jinn, or the genie, so to speak. And these are the counterparts to the Goetic spirits that we have in the Western, the Greek and Egyptian system. So it could really be a very similar thing. Now, are the hierarchies the same? The hierarchies different? Well, there are some differences, but there are also a lot of parallels. It's also interesting that if we really examine literature, even Islamic literature, the genie are lower in the hierarchy than angels, and much lower than archangels. So that is interesting to know. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there for today. Please research further if you are interested in genie or jinn or goetic spirits. And I will continue the series off. I won't announce what the topic is, but stay tuned, because next week is going to be another very interesting theme related to magic and spirits and everything else that pertains to it. All right, enjoy the weekend and have a great week next week, and I'll see you then. And by the way, if you liked this YouTube presentation, feel free, and I'd be happy if you press the like. And also, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, and also click the bell icon there so you can be one of the first to be updated when I upload another interesting episode. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. All right, so on that note, have a great weekend once again, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.
New long-lasting...
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Aima Gillespie, and I'm here with
Sarskin?
And today we're going to talk about the genie. And the genie is always connected to the Jinn or the Jinn. And when people talk about the genie, it's usually associated with the mythology of sometimes they would have folklore about genies being trapped in a box. And it's always not necessarily a box. Sometimes it is a box, it's a lamp, it's a lot of things of that are connected to something that can be sealed off and closed.
Yeah, the jinns is a concept that's usually coming when we use the word jinn or the jinn is coming from Arabia, and in a sense that was the religion or the spirits that they worshipped before Muhammad brought Islam to that Pacific area of the world. So it has a very vast history and mythology, and that's usually the concept that people take when they make genies. And there's many types of jinns based on Arabian mythology. Also, the concept of jinns might exist in other cultures, specifically in Africa, but they may not use the word jinns. So some people may say Zolk, the Jab, Maluk, and it's kind of talking about the same thing in a way.
So those names that you just said of different cultures, where do they belong to?
Oh, those are usually come from West Africa or North Africa. Basically, the concept of jinn is really going to come from either Africa or Arabia. Arabia is going to be known as jinn. The name's going to come from there, but Africans do have their versions too, which is basically very related, similar spirits.
So let's connect the African cultures to the jinn names.
Well, in voodoo culture, you will have spirits called the Jabbers, tend to be very fiery, and voodoo's usually coming from, people say Haiti, but it was originally in Benin in West Africa. So usually it's a spirit that's fiery that some people would say is demonic. I wouldn't say that, but it's very difficult to control. Usually connected to family lines. And part of that is because, especially when voodoo evolved in Haiti, it was a combination of many different spirits that made kind of a pact together that the Jabbers is one of them. So in a sense, the jinns and voodoo will be one of the spirits that they might worship as a collective.
Mm-hmm. And the other ones?
Well, and will be like in North Africa, the Ganawa people, they will see Moloks, where their whole spiritual system is based on that. Would be people, spirits really associated like with music. They're like kind of not comedy, but they have a very lighthearted nature to them when they're happy. And then, of course, they get dark when they're angry. But it's always usually associated with fire or colors, or very like distinct colors. Mm-hmm. And the Zok were the same in East Africa, particularly Ethiopia, where there'll be spirits that they can actually come into you, but they're so powerful that you wouldn't even know you're being possessed. It's like your personality is almost the same. Mm-hmm. It would just affect more your intellect. Right. So all of a sudden, intellectually, you'll be able to just say a lot of different things, but it'll be a lot different than a normal somebody channeling or being possessed, mm-hmm. because your personality is still intact, even mm-hmm. though that other spirit is in charge.
Right. And then, so that those are just the reason we wanted to cross-reference it in many cultures, many religions, is because then you will see that there is this maybe intangible presence or energy that can be represented. But the fact that many cultures can basically have different names but have similar traits says that it may be something that of a true nature. Now, I know in a lot of New Age philosophy, they always try to connect it to aliens, but that's only people who, for one, are not transformed. Two, they're people who are trying to sell you books. And three, it's people who are obviously not from a particular bloodline or not initiated to any type of mystery schools or not even involved themselves. So when you realize that if they see it as one way, it should be able to be cross-referenced in other spiritual systems. In most cases, it's not, and we're going to go into that. But we're primarily going to talk about the genie in the box and how that happens. But let's go to the one that most people know about, which is Arabia or like the Abrahamic religions.
Yeah, when you deal with jinns, you have to realize that you're dealing with a vast culture and cosmology. So when you took the Quran, for instance, because in Judaism and Christianity, people tend to associate jinns with Satan. Mm-hmm. So they tend to associate them with one particular spirit or the negative aspects of that. But in Arabian culture, you know that there's some good and there's some bad. Satan is just one branch. So when you deal with the Quran, when Adam was first made and the angels told all the different kingdoms of nature that they have to, I don't want to say bow down. Yeah, actually was bow down to Adam.
But it wasn't really necessarily nature. It was forces before nature. So it was more like a cosmic force.
Yeah, but and in the Quran was like different forces of nature in terms of the jinns were the one cosmic force.
Right.
So you had the animals, the plants, but the jinns were the one cosmic force that was there.
Right. I just don't want them to be confused with like nature.
Yeah.
But although they are now, we're going to talk about why that is.
And they said no, they're not bowing down. Partly because a lot of jinn their knowledge is going beyond the 36 like worlds that we spoke about. So for them, it's almost like an insult to have to take orders from someone who, and we're not even, the thing is, Adam and them are not even born with all 36 worlds. So most humans have to actually work their way up to activate that part of themselves. Where Jinn is born with all that knowledge already. So in their sense, they consider it an insult. But the jinns that we call bad are the actually ones that actually went to war with the angels. Most jinns didn't go to war. They just said, we're not bowing. But because they said that, they were still depowered. It's just that one branch was kind of damned, which is kind of Satan's branch. And then one branch just said, we're not bowing. But then they got depowered because they didn't bow.
So then that's when you have the fall. Then you have the fall where there's revolt. And some of them, when you think of jinns, you have to realize that they're basically a fallen race, but just as they're fallen, humans have fallen too. So the stories are kind of talking about something sort of to fall from both cultures. No, or not even cultures, but two different types of beings. But the thing is with jinns, they came prior to man. So when you're talking about jinns in Quran, they talk about these beings that are made of smokeless fire. And the reason why that's essential for people to know is because, when you're dealing with fire from an earth perspective, you're dealing with fire needs to be fueled with air or oxygen. And so if there's no air or oxygen, the fire cannot be made to sustain. And therefore, when you're dealing with something that's smokeless fire, it's something that's beyond the perception of air, which is prior to the elements of fire. So that's why it's not the element of fire, it's a fire that came prior to that, more cosmic fire.
And then that's why most people kind of confuse them with fire elementals, because they will always take the line smokeless fire and then say, this is fire intelligence. And when you deal with jinns, it's like Makalesi said, you're dealing with something that's kind of more cosmic, but it's been depowered, so it functions like a nature spirit. And that's particularly why a lot of magicians.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Sorry for the shitty quality. It doesn't really look that well. I'm in the car right now. It's the night. It kind of sucks. I was going to record this. My headset, so the sound quality is better somewhere in the house, but then my headset got destroyed by leaving it in the car. Can't really blame kids or family for that. They didn't know it was in the bag. I shouldn't have left it in the bag. Now I can go around blaming people for the shit that I fucking leave lying around places and get mad at them, but in all honesty, it's really not them. If I know the nature of people, and even myself, I've been careless with things and broke other people's things, so can't really blame other people. It still sucks, but it is what it is. It's not the most expensive Bluetooth headset. It's actually the best priced one, I think, for the distance that it goes and likewise what it can do and its capabilities. But anyways, so today I want to talk about something. I don't know why I'm making a video instead of recording, and I'm probably going to go in more depth on my next episode about this. And I think my next episode is going to be about manifestation and just magic ritual in general. A bunch of things I've collected from various group of different types of people, from left, like extreme left people, to maybe not so extreme left people. Being, like admitted people like EOA Quitting, who, uses the dark forces. Maybe not so much anymore, but I like EOA. Sorry, my car's turning on. I gotta shut it off. I like EOA Quitting. He does a hell of a job. He's come a long fucking way. Oh shit, I just dropped the light. He's come a long fucking way. Anyways, but even when he was just talking about his dark magic, most of the time I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. And it's not that I do dark magic or black magic or whatever he calls to being black magic, or using demons or anything like that. But in the beginning, I never listened to his stuff because of the reputation I heard from him. And then I'm like, and like I said to you guys in other episodes, I needed to, explore that. Something that scares me, or used to scare me, with spirits and demons, and the fact that I don't do much Goetia stuff unless I think I have signs of something like demonic presence, or maybe an attribute from a dark or harmful entity that might be around me causing something to happen, well then I symbolically banish that, alter, using sword, whatever the case is, Goetia stuff. However, I don't actually necessarily dive into using demons for anything. But there's quite a bit of knowledge that he can teach you from just simple stuff. Just anything you'll learn from magic, period. He's got a great point of view of, and a great description and point of view. So necessarily, if you don't believe in what he says, because, how to kill an enemy or stuff like that, you might have seen video titles. And I'd say watch those videos instead of just judging on it. Because, even Frederick Xavier's got a video, how to win the lottery using magic. And most people that watch that trying to win the lottery, who maybe not necessarily do magic, but they would try that magic, are probably disappointed because it basically says he doesn't know how to do it. And it's not the easiest thing to do. But that being said, I like how that blows. This is a simple technique to manifest something, and I would say the first thing you try to manifest with this technique, I would do something small, maybe something you don't really care about. Try it. Now, if you want to go for the gusto, that's fine. But this is basically a symbolic representation of how magic works. Like I said before, your altar is an extension of your mind, and your mind is your altar and everything on your altar. My altar, for example, I will have candles, candle holders, incense. I got a whole bunch of things that represent every fucking planet, which is my chakras within my body, things that represent zodiac. I have it clearly defined east, west, north, south. I have an altar I bring all over the house, which is like a pillar, and to me it signifies a middle pillar, but I put that middle pillar east, west, north, or south in whatever room I'm in or using. Depending on what day of the week it is. Like today would be Mars Day, so it would be on the south, which would be, Archangel Raphael, or where Mars would be, which is where fire is. It is represented on the south side of the zodiac wheel, I guess, so to speak. And east is the sun. People like to get confused. People thinking the sun is fire, even though it's helium, which is an air. But anyways, that's not what I want to talk about. So everything on your altar is symbolic to what's in your mind, and you manipulate stuff in your altar so that you are symbolically speaking to your subconscious mind. That's why you do it in a conscious state, and if you can't get into a trance-like state, well then you start off by pretending you're in a trance-like state off the hop. First thing you do is pretend you're in a trance-like state, because playing pretend as a kid, whenever you were in the now and present, but you were able, David Snyder, who I've played a few videos of, maybe, a month ago, he talked about this he explained this very well, that when you were a kid, 1 minute that stick you were playing with was just a stick, and then the next minute it was a gun or a bat or whatever the case was. Maybe you're playing a wizard with a staff, doesn't matter. Point is, if you pretend to be in a trance, you're in a trance, okay? You don't have to actually be in a trance-like state. That being said, the fourfold breath, stuff like that, when you slow down your breathing, has huge health benefits, but it also helps you get into that trance-like state, and is beneficial to your whole body. And just focusing on your breath helps into your mind and stuff like that. But anyways, besides all that, what you do on in front of your altar is to change something within yourself, and when you change something within yourself, you change something outside of yourself. As within, so without. That's where that plays in. It's one of the hermetic laws. I think it's the second one. The first one is all in the mind. The next one is the law of correspondence, and the correspondence is you do something within you, it happens outside of you. If you do something outside of you, it happens inside of you. If you do something happens above, it happens below you. You know what I mean? That's the law of correspondence in a nutshell. So if you're not that magical, and maybe you haven't got rid of all your programming, or you're in the neophyte stage, or whatever the case is, and you're not sure about sigils, which I think is the best way for anybody to start, is doing sigils. If you're not sure about all that, well, you hear a lot of people talking about planting. You're planting a seed, or at least I used to when I was in the New Age movement, and they would have these metaphoric meditation gardens in their mind, and they would plant their seed, and technically that was representing the thing they wanted to manifest. So if you wanted a specific job, if you wanted a home, if you wanted something a lot bigger, whatever it was, okay, you wanted to find a mate, well, you planted that idea in that garden inside your mind, and then you would see that garden growing every day. Your flower, whatever you planted, you would see that growing every day, and that was symbolic of what you wanted to manifest. And I believe this technique works because, one of the things I did, not for anything specific, but I try every fucking manifesting thing out. Every tool I got that made sense to me, that resonated with, I would try. And even some that I didn't resonate with. And I've got to say, the ones I believed were going to work sometimes didn't work. And the ones I thought weren't going to work, so I didn't pay attention to, most of the time worked. So, and this is one that I didn't hear for anybody, but it was my own creation, so to speak. It's not really a creation, and I didn't really care because, well, you'll understand why in a second. But then it ended up working. And once again, this wasn't for anything big, but if it works on a small scale, it'll work on a big scale. So I grow, and you can probably tell where this is going, but I grow my own rosemary, my own thyme, my own basil, specific herbs that are good for you. Like rosemary is used in protection, depending on what part of the Catholic Church. I think it's our side, the west side, because I think the east in Asia uses a different herb, but their holy water is basically salt water and rosemary. And rosemary's got some protection agents in it. I forget what scientist, but it's one of the well-known older scientists, not Einstein, but a different one, used to use rosemary for remembering and stuff like that. I've heard many New Age college students having it by the computer and, touching it or whatever when they're studying and shit like that. And it helps remember. And, I put that into practice and it absolutely works. Same with basil for getting money and shit like that. So anyways, I grow my own. I grow a lot of my stuff. But this time of year, it's January right now where I am. Well, almost February, actually. We're the 28th. So spring is, let's think about it optimistically, it's right around the corner, a couple months away. Sorry about that light flickering off. It's my car warning me. Let's give it a start right now so I know I didn't kill it. Alright, let's turn this light back on. If it'll go on for me. Son of a bitch, it won't go on for me. That's fucked up. Alright. Sorry about that, guys. I don't listen to the country music. I got nothing against it personally, but I don't listen to country music. Anyways, so, spring's right around the corner. And so I'm going to start growing some more basil, some more rosemary, because everything I grew last year, I didn't actually use it all. My wife, I thought I wasn't using it anymore and shot it out. I just hadn't used it in a while because I was in a bit of a dark place. So I wasn't really doing what I was doing with it. And she went to shoot it out and I freaked out, which I shouldn't have freaked out on her. But anyways, I grabbed it, tried to replant it, and I was supposed to do magic to try to help it and never did. And it died. And, accordingly, I suffered a little bit. I wouldn't call it karma per se, but, for letting something that I was supposed to take care of die. It's not good. It's alive. It's a living thing. And, I see people cutting down trees around me and I get mad, but yet I don't take care of my own. Very hypocritical. So I still get upset when I see people cutting down trees to build parking lots and whatever is. But then I think back, say, well, my wife killed that thing. I was supposed to try to make it come back to life. I could have, and it didn't happen because I got too busy. So who am I to judge these guys? Anyways, besides the point, if you have some seeds at home, whatever it is, if you're doing this for the first time and if you're going to do what I'm telling you to do, buy something that is either cheap, that you can try often, or something is easy to grow in any environment, basically. I wouldn't try, something that's not made for the climate or for indoors if you're in Canada like I am to start off with. These herbs that I'm talking about are pretty easy to grow inside your house. I've never had them outside, to be honest. The rosemary gets pretty thick, but it's kind of like a very small vine, the one that comes out for me anyways. And the basil became a huge fucking a 1.5-foot tree within this little pot. They were in the same pot at one point together. Maybe that's why the rosemary didn't get bigger, because the basil was taking most of the water. But the point is, very easy to grow and very useful. From cooking to healing to protections to remembering. just like symbols, just like everything, that herb is not made for just one thing. It's gonna hit on multiple levels. Anyways, so if you haven't figured it out yet, the metaphoric idea, try that if you want, but you can also anchor that into something physical. So you take your seeds and, within a fucking ritual or something to that effect, or, even if you just write down exactly what's going to happen on paper. And I mean what's going to happen, not right, I'm going to try to grow these seeds and it's going to be symbolic of the $10,000 I want to manifest. No, right? I am so grateful that I planted these basil seeds, and this plant was a representation of this $10,000 that I received, and I am so grateful and thankful that the universe, the gods, Jupiter, Venus is Earth, so it might make sense, has blessed me with both the plant and the money that I'm going to give her a candle and incense once a week. Which isn't unreasonable, every fucking day. I think everybody should be burning a candle if they can afford it anyways. And if not, if you have leftover wax from other candles, well, it's not hard to light something on fire with wax and keep it lit for a while and carve something in a little piece of wax with a little piece of, you can light ashes on fire. If you have wax, it's going to last a couple of minutes, you know what I mean? And that's ashes. Ashes are basically nothing. It's whatever got burnt into ash. People's bodies get burnt into ash, nothing. And you can light that with wax on fire for a while. It's basically the wax burning off, but it has to have something attached to, even something as small, as not dense or least dense, however you want to word what ashes are. As ash, basically. But yeah, so basically in magic, you're doing the same thing, right? You make a sigil for what you want, put that on the candle, you do it in a ritual. Even if you don't do it in a ritual, you just stare at that sigil, you masturbate to that sigil, whatever the case is, you're putting that into your mind. So you have a magical idea, something you want, and you created something physical. That sigil is a physical item that you put on your altar, you let other eyes see it, you activate it just with you, whatever the case is. You have something in the physical, and you have an idea that's in your mind, that's in the thoughts. I wouldn't necessarily call it the astral or the spiritual plane yet, but technically thoughts are kind of like spirits. So you can kind of say that. It's not exactly right, but you want to bring that thought into manifestation. So basically that thought as of right now, which is a thought, then you create that symbol. Okay, now you just brought that thought into physicality as that symbol. Now you want to get rid of that symbol so that the universe has a hole to fill. All right. Every time there's a hole to fill, she fills it. Now, if you don't replace, so this is why when you banish, you must invoke. Because if you banish something out of your mind and you don't replace it with something, this is why I talk about addiction so often in this sense. Because if you try to banish your addiction by just, I'm going to quit, and you try hard to quit every day, okay, well, that's great. But if you don't fill that space with something, nature, the goddess, chaos, the matrix, mother, nature, then you create that symbol. Okay, now you just brought that thought into physicality as that symbol. Now you want to get rid of that symbol so that the universe has a hole to fill. All right, every time there's a hole to fill, she fills it. Now, if you don't replace, so this is why when you banish, you must invoke. Because if you banish something out of your mind, and you don't replace it with something, this is why I talk about addiction so often in this sense. Because if you try to banish your addiction by just, I'm going to quit, and you try hard to quit every day, okay, well, that's great. But if you don't fill that space with something, nature, the goddess, chaos, the matrix, mother, nature, Venus, whoever you want to call it, she's going to fill it. Gaia, she's going to fill it with what was already there. The road to least expectance, or the path, the least resistant path, basically, which means she's not just going to randomly pick something new to put in there. No, she's going to fill what was already there. That's the most likely thing to go back there, because, well, if you didn't do the process right, following these laws, well, obviously she's going to put some back in there until you learn the right way. It'd be just too easy otherwise. But you're doing the same thing with this plant idea. You have something physical, and you're tying your manifestation to that plant. Now, if you want to put the sigil on the fucking seed package, if you want to make a sigil that says this plant is the metaphoric or the symbol of my $10,000, and when this plant starts to grow, I will start receiving it, however you want to word it. This is where you need to come in with some creativity and add your part to this process as you deem fit. And you're actually doing something every day. And the reason why I think this works, because what I just said is kind of wishy-washy, like this is representation of my $10,000 as it grows. It's kind of fucked up, but so you can fuck around with that and make it make more sense for you, because I know how I do it. And it's kind of similar to what I just said. I'm not going to pretend I make it more elaborate than that, but the reason why it works is because every time I make sure that it's in the light. Every time I go to take care of this plant, water this plant, every time I do a ritual, it's right near my ritual space. Now, that may not be possible, but there's nothing stopping you from bringing it down your ritual space and being thankful for the plant, for it growing, for your manifestation. Every time you do a ritual, the more you do that, the more likely it's going to happen. And then don't think about it any more times during the day, unless you have a strong emotional feeling of, love, happiness, joy. Then think about it, and then when the moment passes, it passes. You let it go once again. But every time you water it, you think about your manifestation, how happy you are for it to come, and the fact that you're watering it every day. I mean, the fact that you think about it every day. It's the equivalent of doing your meditation when you're thinking about it, your visualizations when you're thinking about your manifestation, when you're waiting for it to come in. It's the equivalent of that, and you're taking care of a live being at the same time. So not only are you just trying to bring something in and giving candles to gods or goddesses that you may or may not believe, but you have a physical earth live being that you're caring for. And to me, that is a great thing, because, plants, they breathe in oxygen, they inhale carbon dioxide, and they exhale oxygen. So I mean, it's great for your house. So it's been a known study that people that have plants by their workstations in their home are happier than people that don't have plants. Multiple things, and there's a reason for that. And if you get into any fairy lore or anything like that, you'll see that if you have plants, like I said, when mine died, shit got fucked up. I always had trouble finding keys and other things of the like happening, which is kind of in line with a lot of fairy lore, and ancestors and shit like that. Point is, you're taking care of something. You have this physical thing anchored in your physical reality that represents something that you want to bring into manifestation. So when it starts growing, it's likely that thing is going to start growing in your mind. I would say, if you want to amp it up, do everything else I've also taught by making the recorder of the affirmation, going to bed with that affirmation all the fucking time, listening to that. So this way, when you get to that theta state or whatever state it needs to be for that meditation state, for it to get right into your subconscious, you do that with this. You do that visualization with the plant in your mind. You visualize yourself actually having that happen. Laying on the story you wrote where you received this. Don't be maybe vague on the details of how you got it, because then you might restrict how you might get whatever it is you want. Once again, all those things I've already covered multiple times, but it's a little trick you can do if you're worried about sigils, bringing in fucking demons into your mind. As people like to say, stupid people often try to demonize making sigils. Like, a sigil isn't a fucking, if you're using a demon's sigil, then of course. But if you are creating a sigil for something that happened from, I am grateful I received 10 grand, I will thee, so mote it be, harm-free, magical name, magical sigil. If you make a sigil out of those letters, that's not a demonic sigil. That's not going to release anything in your mind, and it's going to work. Absolutely. If you can stop thinking about it, it's going to fucking work. And to me, that works probably the fastest out of all the methods. And this, you have to actually wait for it to grow. But it's just an idea for anybody, and it could be a long-term thing that you take care of, and it has to grow, and, for growing a business, right? The first part of growing a business, having a baby, growing a plant, it takes a while, because the first root's got to go down and they got to come up. So whenever you start this process, your idea's got to formulate, and then it starts getting some traction, it starts coming through, and then it gets better, it goes faster and faster once it starts sprouting up. But it takes time for these things to happen. And, it's a good way to gauge and use. And then, it's not necessarily Mother Nature, the universe, dictating how long it's going to take your manifestation. Because you say, by the time this plant starts growing, I will receive so-and-so thing. And then you can get more elaborate with it and say, and once it grows to this height, whatever, do your research on how big your plant gets. Because if you say, well, by the time the plant's a foot high, I'm going to receive double the amount or maybe the whole amount. And then your plant never gets that big because you either didn't put it in a big enough pot for the roots to grow big enough, or it just never reaches that height, or you don't have the right climate or whatever. And then you kind of fucking yourself over. Just an idea. And I like shooting ideas out like this. I don't think I do this too often, but because it'll spark other ideas in you for other ways to use the same principle, which is basically taking something from the physical realm, physical world, such as a plant, growing plants, and tying your manifestation to it. And there's so many other ways you can do the same technique with so many other things. And, it's time to start thinking outside the box and getting creative with your shit, because when you stop listening to other people's way of manifesting and you say, like I listened to Frater before I ever read the book, and I tried sigils probably before I did my curriculum, or within the same time period. It's a little fuzzy. I'm pretty sure, though, it was either during or before my neophyte. Definitely before the second time I actually finished the neophyte. But point is, I had to listen to somebody else to figure out how to do magic. And then I figured out all the ways to manifest. And then I got into this thing where, that worked, but it took a while. So how do I speed this up? And I was on this quest for knowledge to find the ultimate way to manifest. But then from there, I get stuck in all these things like opening my third eye, Kundalini activation, fucking connecting your minds together, hypnosis, NLP. And then I couldn't stick to one topic. But I was still searching for the ultimate way to manifest, but always, and I'm grateful because I maybe read all these fucking books all the time simultaneously. But point is, you get stuck sometimes. And whenever you already have a way that works, some people have already learned the way it works and haven't tried it yet because they're scared to try it, fail, and realize that the last month, week, years, they've been diving into occult knowledge, that if they do it and they fail, then all this is going to be for nothing. So they don't want to try it, period. I think that's a part of the armchair occultism, because I think that's one of the things happened to me, or not happened, but one of the things I was worried about, among many others. So when you start creating your own ways to manifest, or taking ways you learned and creatively changing them, making them unique to you, then you start really speeding up the process of you receiving stuff, receiving your manifestations, because you took this one process and you made it your own. It's personalized. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. But if you keep good notes, or you have a good memory at the very least, because if you don't have a good memory, then take fucking notes. If you got a great memory, you can remember every step, well then, okay, you may not have to take notes, but it might be still a good idea to write down what you did. Because when you write down what you did, you're reinforcing that what you did, and you're rewriting what you did do. So it's like you did it in the real world, the reality world, but writing things down, period, is magical. And things happen when you write things down. They come into being. Just that's a way to manifest things all on its own, is just writing down what you want to happen. Your budget every month. If you write your budget with your regular money every month, well, no wonder you don't get extra money. I've already said this before. It was another idea I hope people can add a creative spin on, is making your monthly budget with double your income. And then maybe whenever you start seeing results from that, well, do like double and a half, double or triple, keep going up. Because, when you double it, let's say you double it for the first time, like me and my wife just did. And we got a lot of extra money this January. And I think we did our budget with almost 10 grand. And we didn't get quite the 10 grand for this 1 month, but I think we got like 8,700 and some altogether, which is astounding, because we normally get, somewhere around 6, let's say. So we got about a little more than $2,000 extra this month by me saying 10 grand. And the month's still not over, to be honest. And I actually get one more pay this month. So I think we're actually going to hit the 10 grand, because I get paid this Friday and it's still technically January. And that's something I didn't even account for, that I got 3 pay weeks in this month. I could have saw that ahead and maybe went higher. But the fact is that I doubled my month's income. I said I wrote my budget for $10,000, which is roughly double, because we get about $6 grand a month. So 12 is actually double. So, but I went with a $5,000 budget, and I doubled that. And my wife's like, well, no, it's more like 6 when you had baby bonus and blah, 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 whatever else. And I got it. Yeah, okay, I didn't know I had 3 paychecks this month, plus her 2 paychecks, plus her baby bonus, and plus all the extras. Like, she went to the casino a couple nights ago. I mean, it wasn't much, but when when she transferred it into American, it was a nice amount. Different things like that. So, but anyways, that's besides the point. But yeah, I didn't know that was going to happen, and it happened. These are different ways you can anchor your magic into the reality, into your world. The more you do that, the more you blur the lines between the magical world and your regular reality, and it's easier to speak things into reality. Your manifestations start happening faster. Problem with that is if you don't guard the gates of your mind or have your mouth on lock, you start talking shit about somebody or about yourself or about a loved one, well, then yeah, you're going to fuck them up too. So you really got to be careful because it's a double-edged sword. But anyways, that's my message for today. I just wanted to make a video because I haven't made it in a while and see what happens. But hope you can see it, hope you can hear it, and I hope the plant thing works for you. And at the very least, if your manifestation doesn't come, you give up. Well, it'll probably come then when you give up. Stop thinking about it because, you're dwelling on it could fuck you up, obviously. There's so many different ways for your conscious mind to get in the way, whether it's religious programming, whether you think people with money are evil, and then your subconscious mind's not going to want you to be the evil person, so it's never going to let you have money. So you got to get rid of that mindset and fake it till you make it, baby, because if you still have a problem with people that are rich, you still think they're overwhelmingly evil, let's just go for a month by saying, I love rich people. This is something coming from Frater. I love rich people. Rich people are awesome. They're not greedy at all. Being poor is what's greedy because you're holding on to every dime, and that's why you're poor. Being poor is evil. Flip the paradigm. In your head, and you see what can happen. That's money magic all by itself. By saying being poor, being in debt, not being able to pay your bills, that's the bad guy. Make that as an affirmation. I'm telling you, within a fucking month, you're going to start getting more money because you might, if you're poor and just making it by, well, you probably live with maybe religious parents that thought being poor was holy, and okay, we're just struggling to get by, but when we die, we're going to go to heaven because of it, because God likes poor people, and he only lets poor people in heaven, which is bullshit. Inaccurate whatsoever, whether you're talking about the heaven or the fucking like poor people think. But point is, that's magic all by itself. But anyways, so there's a lot of things that could stop this from happening. So I'll be like, this plant thing is fucking bullshit. Well, no, it worked for me, so what the fuck? And maybe it's just because I'm at that level where I can just write things down and they happen. Who knows? But I don't care. I got some basil out of it. I got some thyme out of it. I got some rosemary out of it. And I got a lavender one I'm going to do now because lavender really helps my baby go to sleep good. So yeah, it's going to be beneficial too. So anyways, hope you enjoyed and have a great fucking day.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I want to thank everybody for tuning in to my last 2 episodes that I just did. I don't mean last ever. I mean, just the last ones I put out. Sorry, just woke up. I'm at my daughter's dance. That doesn't matter. Why am I saying that? Anyways, at the very least, I'm going to keep trying to put out at least one, if I can, 2 episodes like I just did. But it's very minimum 1 episode a week. And hopefully by the weekend, because, that's when I have the most time to do it. Well, assuming that the wife and kids don't take up my time. And I try not to mean that in a bad way. But anyways, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I'm just making this shit for whatever reason. But yeah, I'm going to try to stay away from the philosophies of life so much. And the last video was about dark side stuff. I was trying to focus on the dark side stuff and how there's people that come out of the dark side all the time. And the overall theme was the fact that people have dark sides many times in their life. Because, I talk about how I'm going through the grades and my life lessons because I'm going through the initiation, magical initiation, right? The neophyte grade is supposed to be your initiation grade, and then you start going through the actual grades. It's grade 0 is your neophyte grade, right? In the book Kabbalah, the Great Work of Self-Transformation, I'm doing it. But to me, this is just my speculation or just my opinion. But when you go into a magical system, whatever it be, whether you're doing a year and day with someone like Birch, or you're doing just a bunch of book curriculum, or you're following a different magical thing via YouTube, fucking all the other places there, what's it called, Gumroad, and all these other places where they teach for money, whatever the case is, okay, whatever you're doing. To me, it's your initiation into magic, basically, because, after you pass this initiation, according to the person who made the book, or the person making the course, whether or not you're adept is going to be on how you feel, and whether or not anybody ever becomes an adept. I don't know, I can't tell you that, but I think you're an adept when you think you're an adept. But point I'm trying to make is, like I said, every time I switch grade, I feel like I'm going through an initiate. I feel like I'm going through a dark night of the soul before my neophyte, really. Hit a dark night of the soul, started the neophyte, got a dark night of the soul when I went into, after the first time. I did my neophyte twice, like I said, and then before I got to the first grade, because I didn't follow through completely to the end, hit a dark night, and fucking did it, and hit another dark night, and then hit another dark night, and, arguably, like I said in my last episode, arguably right now I could be going through one, I don't really know, but yeah, so the point I'm trying to get at, I guess, is, when I said the story about my wife and all the things she went through in her life, well, judging by us, how am I going to word this? Sorry, I don't think about shit before I just start recording. I just figured give her a few moments to get in there, get herself ready to go dance. Then I'm going to go watch my daughter dance, but I want to make a video about something. I don't know why. I just had the urge to. But anyways, Dark Night of the Soul, whenever you start hitting one or dealing with your shadow side, whatever the case is, if you're not a magical person, you still have these moments. I mean, Dark Night of the Soul is not an actual thing that happens to people. It is, especially when you get into the magical. If you get into magical systems, New Age, and then you start reading about this happening to people, and you're watching this shit day in and day out, and people are talking about it. Well, absolutely, it's a thing now because you are going to be like, fuck, I never hit my dark night. When am I going to hit it? And then you're going to hit it. You're not going to know until after, but you're going to know it's going to happen. Point is, though, even if you're not a magical person like my wife, you're going to have many dark times in your life. I mean, the time when I was with her and she was told she had a cyst on her cervix that was cancerous, and she probably won't be able to have kids anymore. And we're like, that's fine, just take this bitch out. We already have 3. And she was able to have a 4th kid, which is absolutely magical itself. But that could have been easily a dark night for her, and she didn't let it become one. Whenever she had her baby in high school, like, the man she was with got into a dark night of the soul, and he still hasn't come out of it. Basically, in a manner of speaking, if you watched my last episode where I explained all that, I mean, he's still not out of it, right? Because he tries to get off the dope every time, and I think he actually does a legitimate attempt, because I think he knows he needs to get off it, but he just can't. And that goes back to, if you don't replace a habit with another habit, you're not going to get rid of the first habit. If you're just trying to stop one habit and not creating a new habit out of it, finding something that you can do with that time until you at least get over the main hump, it's never going to happen. And then from there, you can switch that new habit out. It doesn't matter, but he's never got over that dark night of the soul, and it didn't really happen to him. He could have continued high school. She told me after I made the episode, because I was curious, I asked him, like, did you tell him why they'd stop going to high school or anything like that? And she said, no, he decided to do that himself. I never made him. She's like, I appreciated it, especially when I was pregnant, needed the help. For the little bit of time he did help me, but she didn't necessarily ask him to stop going to school. He chose that on his own because she wasn't. Basically, well, she's not going to go, I don't have to go. But then complained about the fact, well, he never actually complained about it at the time, but anyways, it's evident that he was using it as a reason to get high and do drugs and be like, well, my life was ruined, I'm having kids, I'm only fucking 16, blah, blah, blah. I think he was actually a couple years older than her, so 17, whatever the case was. Well, no one made him do anything, and he's still in that dark night of the soul. This is another reason why I say women are probably the stronger gender when it comes to that, and, it's because they can go through these dark things, and they don't get into these depressed states like us men do as deep, and it's probably something with our psychological makeup, and they're made stronger because, whoever made us, or however it worked out whenever we were being made, they made women to be able to have to care for children, and you can't have a woman going through fucking dark times when they're taking care of a baby. Now, it does happen, and my speculation and opinion of that would be, if you have a woman who is more disagreeable, or more like a man, more positive in their birth chart, whatever the case is, well, those are the women that probably are more likely and more prone to getting baby blues. Once again, it's not their fault either. So they have everything inside of them to take care of that baby, but because their attitude, temperament, psychology, whatever you want to call it, their makeup is more, emotions are more that of what men, 60% of men are, and Whereas I think I'm more of like more of a woman, but I have more of an agreeable makeup, and in my chart I have more negative. My planets are, it's all mostly negative placements. Where although my two girl planets are actually in positive placements, so that probably helps me out a little bit. I know my male planets are in negative placements, so, well, maybe not Jupiter, but anyways, I think Jupiter. Anyways, point is, we all go through dark night cycles, we all go through dark times, and the point of that show was, or at least the second part, but both parts, I think I was trying to really get to the point of everybody goes through dark times, and what you make of them is how you go about it, and there's no reason to not. You have to sometimes go through a hard time, and those hard times are going to define you. They're going to make you who you are, and that can be for better or for worse. You can be in a fucking 10-year dark night of the soul where, it's always dark, but then you have a little bit of light, kind of like the yin-yang sign. Whereas if you're able to not be taken down by tragedy, then you're going to have more light and only a little bit of dark times. And if you're doing any kind of magical initiation, and when I say initiation, I don't just mean neophyte stage, I mean the whole fucking thing, because this is uncharted territory, right? We don't have magical schools like we used to, and if we do, I don't know about them. I mean, I'm sure there is, but I don't know about them, and if I did, I'd put my kids in them, for God's sakes. But, yeah, we don't have this shit. It's not knowledge. So anytime you're doing these fucking magical systems and doing these steps, it's a big initiation, and I truly believe it's bringing life lessons to you faster. Anytime you have your life lessons coming to you faster, so that later on in life, hopefully you get more profound things, and whenever these things happen to you, they don't knock you down so hard. You're going to have more chances for these dark times, but through the dark times come the enlightenment, and that was my point. So if you become into any system, whether it's the one I promote, which is the one I got from Frater, which same book, Cabal, Great Work of Transformation, whether you're learning from a witch directly or any other person who's in esoteric cult shit, even if you're a Christian learning fucking shit, doesn't matter. Just stick to it, get through your dark night, and rise above it, become enlightened. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Ceremonial Witch. Well, Corey LeBlanc. I gotta stop using that term, although I really like it. It's not my magical name, just a magical term. Something to be identified by. Anyways, what's going on? My name is Corey LeBlanc. My Ceremonial Witchcraft is on Spreaker, and if you're watching this, you probably already know that, so what the fuck am I saying it for? But this episode just came out. 2 for 1, actually. One, just a bunch of fucking info, probably useful, and then another one, it's actually the story about my wife and all the shit she had to overcome. And everybody knows who follows my story that my wife does not do magic. She's slowly coming around to believing that our mind can control things, but she is not magical in the least, or does ritual, or anything like I do. But nonetheless, she has overcome some pretty fucking awesome things, and you should definitely check it out. It's free. I don't charge for this shit. Why the fuck would I? But yeah, check it out. It's pretty fucking cool. And yeah, have a great fucking day. Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm a Ceremonial Witch, and I'm laying down because I'm pretty fucking tired. But I want to put a quick video on Instagram and or YouTube to anybody who had tuned into my last episode. Within that last episode, I promised to put on a book, or put on a couple books, as in payment, or, an offering to, because I didn't put out the episode I was supposed to, and I don't know, a couple of reasons. Anyways, I still was going to put a couple books on there. So, because I did the episode about goetic spirits and stuff like that. Carol Poke Runyon's book, Solid Magic, or something to that effect. I put that on there, and a few other ones. One about astral travel, and another one by Carol Poke Runyon about the Secret to the Golden Dawn. I can't remember the title. I think those are 3 books, 3 PDFs to put on there, and I apologize for being very tired looking and having trouble keeping my eyes open. I didn't get much sleep last night being on this overnight shift, but that's what I'm about to do now. So, anyways, I'm going to be recording an episode before going to work tonight, and hopefully getting it on today, and it's going to be about that number, the 8,367 or 66 people it takes to change the population of 7 billion, and I want to put it in a perspective of a few things. But anyways, so I can't promise. Once again, it's going to be on tonight, but I'm going to do my best to put it on tonight, and if not, it'll be on tomorrow, but I'm going to start recording now, depending on how tired, if I can get through it or not. Otherwise, I will record it whenever I am done taking my nap before going to work. So anyways, hope you enjoy those PDFs and the new episode, and have a great fucking day.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the Ceremonial Witch coming to you from Cornwall, Ontario, Canada. What's going on? Recently set up a few things, such as a website for Ceremonial Witchcraft, and that was just to attempt to put books on there, my PDFs on there, which I probably would have gotten shit for if I did actually do what the Google fucking thing I used to make the website didn't really allow me to do that, so I put pictures of the books on there. So if anybody actually from watching me on Spreaker or YouTube or anything like that actually wants one of the books I recommended, or any of the other ones from the pictures I put on there, let me know. Send me an email and I'll fucking send it to you, or figure out a way to get it to you, whichever way. I mean, they're pretty easy to find because I found them all myself, but if you want to take the guesswork out, let me know. That's I have a picture on there. It says I have, I think, 891, I don't know, 800 and something. That's a screenshot from my phone. So if there's a book that I didn't recommend that you want, that you don't see the picture on there, ask me, and there's a good chance I have it if it's occult, hypnosis, witchcraft, magic, Goetia, Enochian, along those lines. Let me know. I don't know how long I can put this. I'm going to try to put this on the Google website, if not just on YouTube. But it's for anybody who doesn't know what I look like and wants to see me. So I've been talking about manifesting stuff and tell people I had a house and 2 cars and I'm not currently working, and that's true. My wife and 2 daughters just went to the park. My one boy's inside, the other boy's at his buddy's house. I left my phone in the car. I told everybody I was going to put a movie out on this Thursday about the Jupiter system, or the book Financial Sorcery that I have. If you want, like I said, ask for it and I'll give it to you. And it was all set. My son's graduation from grade 8 going into grade 9 was that day, so I got busy, but my phone crapped out on me. It's all fucked right up. If I put it in the car, the Bluetooth, or just through the USB cable, I can actually use it to play songs and call people, but because the screen's fucked, so I can't actually do anything with it. So anyways, I'm using a laptop right now, and I'm going to be doing my first episode using a laptop and the speaker app, sorry about that, on my laptop to record tonight. So I actually had to go out and buy a fucking a little recording device there. Man, look at this, 25 fucking bucks for this. It's got a USB drive and all that. It's luckily I was able to upload all my current recordings and shit like that onto that, and the ones I use at night to go to sleep to. Because, they're all on the laptop, but, I got Bluetooth headphones too, but my wife doesn't like it that much when I wear the headphones to bed, period. If I have a laptop now beside me in the bed or whatever, she's going to get kind of fucking pissed. Sorry, I'm a smoker. I'm sure you guys heard the lighter in the background before, but anyways. So, My site's pretty shitty. There's not much information on there. It's just a bunch of dumb shit and whatever. Pictures of fucking random shit. I don't know. But it will get better. I'm not trying to get people to go there. If anything, just hit the Google or the Spreaker or the YouTube for my Gmail fucking email address and just send me a message and ask me what's up. But anyways, I am going to try to put that on there. And the other reason for the video, I don't like doing videos because I said before that in the past I tried doing videos for YouTube and I got too fucked up looking at myself. Now that I'm a little more depolarized, I don't care so much about my looks, but I'm very Venusian and very Taurian, Taurus, and Venus dominate my chart. So I like looking good. I like working out a lot, or used to anyway. So I always have to do my hair myself. I don't trust people with my hair, shit like that. So that fucked me up. So I like people hearing what I have to say without my face being in the way. Like, look at this fucking idiot, or, you know what I mean? And not only that, it's a distraction to me. I end up putting up a bunch of random dumb shit. Anyway, I'm going to walk around for a second here. As you see behind me, there's my pool and my trampoline. Stop sign of a busy road there. Car going by. And we're going around. And now I'm facing east. So you can see the sun setting. That's west. Obviously behind me is west. And the computer screen is in the east right now. When I turn around, I'm looking at the north, which would be the next step if you're doing lesser banishing. There's my neighbor's fence, who's actually attached to me. Right there's my garage. There's my neighbor's house. And that's my house. The closing line in the background. And there's my one vehicle right there, my Dodge Journey. That's the one that's in my name. And we're going to go back that way for a second. And there, I'm just facing the other way. There's my neighbors across the road, blah, blah, blah. My big fucking tree I love to sit under. And yeah, the point of this is simply just to tell people how to manifest what I did. Show my first manifestation. Like this car, sorry, that first car is not my first manifestation. But the second one I got, this one right there behind me, that's my second vehicle right there. That's the second one I got. This is the house I got, and basketball net and all that shit. It's a pretty sick pad, to be honest. I mean, it cost me $160,000, $150,000. But I mean, what the other cost was like $160,000. But yeah, I just want to show people that, you know, the point of my channel is I'm trying to demystify magic, occult, witchcraft, Raider has tried to do or is doing, like Birch is kind of doing, other people are doing, because it doesn't have to be all about spirits and conjuring and shit like that. It can simply be about just putting stuff in your subconscious mind. And I took the advice and I did the steps, I did the rituals, and look, I mean, even before I did the rituals, just using the law of attraction. This pad right here, this is my pad, this is my house. That's my neighbor's hair behind me. This is just my little deck here, back deck. Well, like I said, this shit is possible. You can be a stay-at-home dad if that's what you want. You can find the job you want, the girl you want. You can make as much money as you want. You can have 2 cars. Like technically right now, I'm not working. I'm still paying my bills. I'm still paying my bills. You know? That's pretty fucking incredible if you ask me. This is my house. So anyways, I'm probably like an idiot walking around with a laptop. But yeah, I just wanted to show everybody where I am, where I'm from, what I look like, shit like that. But I'm going to go back in the backyard. I'm going to go get my episode ready for tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed this little fucking clip. Maybe I'll do some more of these, I don't know. It's probably going to go on YouTube because I tried to upload a few of my old videos that I made, the ones that I was kind of fucked up. When I was just doing the law, sorry about that. I was just doing the law of attraction shit, the new age shit. I tried making videos because I really felt like I needed to. And whenever nothing happened, I got depressed and didn't know what my purpose was and all this and all that. And I'm not saying this is my purpose. I really don't think speaker videos and teaching people is my purpose. But I do know that uplifting other people uplifts you. Helping other people is also good. You first have to help yourself. And not only that, teaching people, saying this shit, helps more information come to me. So, all that being said, sorry, I thought the fucking recording stopped. I was like, what the fuck? I did all that for nothing? Shit. But anyways, yeah, we're going to record on this, and I'm going to plug it in and put it on there. If you haven't figured it out, now that's what I do. I record shit prior, and then I upload it and make sure, because, you know, I'm not rich, so I can't really just use the data to do my shows. And if my Wi-Fi craps out because there's so many kids that I live with, I have so many kids. If they fucking, I don't know. Anyways, the Wi-Fi craps out, it goes on my data, and I don't need any more charges. We always run out of our data before the end of the month. Now we got a fucking big package and shit too. But anyways, what the fuck am I talking about that shit for? Oh, here, sorry. There's my dog. That's Mia. Mia. Hey, Mia. Good girl. Anyways, yeah. I'll talk to you guys later. Like I said, reach out if you wanna fucking book or something like that. I might even try to record the books and put them on there. I don't know if I can get it up so you can just listen to it. Like I said, more occult shit you can take in. Just doing your day-to-day shit, it'll get into your brain. It's the way the TV tricks you, you know. You get in a little trance, relaxed state. You can't get in a trance or meditate or do magic unless you're relaxed. What does TV do? It relaxes you. You go to sleep and you fall asleep with the fucking TV on. That shit's not by fucking mistake. But anyways, have a good one. Peace. Ceremonial witch. Bitch. Fuck, I look stupid when I do that. Peace out.
Else responsible for the American. Jack Parsons, to me, is the greatest unknown, I don't know what to call him, philosopher, scientist, whatever he was the greatest. He was one of the greatest men of the 20th century who's not known. Most people have heard of Buckminster Fuller and Albert Einstein and Aleister Crowley to some extent, James Joyce. Jack Parsons is virtually unknown, and yet he was more than anybody else responsible for the American space program and the fact that a man as Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. He's responsible for the whole space program. And he was one of the greatest libertarian philosophers who ever lived. His book, Freedom is a Two-Edged Sword, seems to me one of the greatest statements of libertarian philosophy ever written. And if I had $1 million, I would print enough copies of that to put one in every home in the United States so that everybody would have a chance to read it. I'm a very ardent libertarian myself, but I disagree with most libertarians about a lot of issues. Jack Parsons is the one libertarian I agree with about almost everything in the 20th century. There are some 19th century libertarians I agree with about almost everything, such as Lysander Spooner, Ezra Hayward, Benjamin Tucker, but they're almost all forgotten, like Jack Parsons. Libertarianism does not have much popularity, although this country was founded on libertarian principles. Jack Parsons was not only a great libertarian philosopher and a great scientist, but he was a very gifted and talented and philosophical and intelligent occultist, which is hard for a lot of people to understand. Most people think you're either a scientist or an occultist. You can't be both. Jack Parsons is the classic example of that you can be both. There are many other cases in history like Isaac Newton, Giordano Bruno, Johannes Kepler, but Parsons was the only one in recent times who was undoubtedly a major scientist, or at least a major engineer, which meant that he had to have a lot of basic scientific knowledge to be such a great engineer, and a major practicing occultist. And so the fact that he was a scientist, an occultist, and a libertarian makes him a tremendously fascinating and important figure. And the reason he's not generally known is because most people can't understand how you can put science, libertarianism, and occultism together in one head. And that's why Jack Parsons is so important. He did it, and he was probably murdered by the United States government just because of that. Either that or he died in an accident, depending on whose story you believe. Well, the separation between science and occultism is a fairly modern thing. In the Renaissance, science and occultism were very closely related. As I mentioned, Kepler and Newton and practically everybody else who was important in the creation of the scientific revolution was also a practicing occultist. The outstanding example is Giordano Bruno, who was burned by the Catholic Church, burned at the stake on February 16th, 1600 in Rome. Bruno was charged with 18 counts of heresy and including practicing magic and teaching the Copernican theory of astronomy and founding secret societies to oppose the Vatican. Francis Yates, a leading historian, wrote about our major topic was the birth of the modern scientific worldview in the Renaissance. She thinks Bruno may have founded either Freemasonry or Rosicrucianism, or maybe both of them. And in that tradition, Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Illuminati, is another person in that tradition, and Aleister Crowley is another. He was Parsons' major teacher. The general view is that science is based on experiment and occultism is based on woozy thinking and blind faith. But the kind of occultism that the Western world has produced from the Renaissance to the present has been based on the same principles as science. It's based on very simple things. You do this and you observe the result. It's just like science. It's just the same thing as scientific experiment. You sit in a certain posture and try to empty your mind and see what happens. You change your posture and use a mantra. Instead of trying to empty your mind, you just keep repeating over and over, Om Namu Shivaya, Om Namu Shivaya, Om, or whatever the hell you want, Hare Krishna, 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 or whatever you want. My favorite is Shamati Shawati, Shamati Shawati, Shamati Shamati, Shamati Shawati. It's like a windshield wiper, but it really empties the mind pretty quickly. Shamati Shawati, Shamati Shawati, Shamati Shamati, Shamati Shawati. Magic in the Western occult sense is a whole bunch of tricks and devices, clever means, as they say in Hinduism, clever means to mutate your consciousness by blocking the usual paths your consciousness goes in. Ordinary consciousness is a conditioned response to early childhood experiences and early conditioning and early learning and so on, which is why the children of most Catholics remain Catholics, the children of most communists remain communists, the children of most Muslim fundamentalists remain Muslim fundamentalists, etc., etc., etc. If you want to break out of the robotic conditioning imposed on you in childhood, you need some kind of dramatic technique. And Western occultism is one of the more dramatic techniques of busting out of conditioned consciousness to become aware of the many levels of reality that you can perceive if you're not trapped in one particular reality tunnel. Parsons understood Crowley very well, and other American scientists who suffered as much misrepresentation or just plain being ignored by the mass media. Timothy Leary also understood the importance of Crowley. Leary's work is very much in the same tradition as Crowley and Parsons. You do certain things and you observe the result, and you see what conclusions you can obtain from that. Crowley, Parsons, and Leary both used consciousness-altering drugs to a great extent. That is considered the major crime in modern America for reasons that go back to the witchcraft persecutions. Joan of Arc was burned at the stake for using drugs to contact superior intelligences, which she called angels. The Catholic Church called them demons. Whatever the hell they were, they told her to unite France and drive the English out. She used marijuana. It's very interesting that people are in jail all over this country for the same crime that Joan of Arc was burned at the stake for, isn't it? Jack Parsons was probably killed by the American government for using the same techniques of altering consciousness. I think Crowley's techniques, Crowley's magazine, The Equinox, had the masthead, the magazine of scientific illuminism. And the importance of the scientific method in the Crowley system is not generally understood. Most people just know that Crowley detested organized religion. They know he hated Christianity. They don't know he hated every other organized religion too, and was very careful not to found one of his own. There are no Crowleyans, or anybody who thinks they're a Crowleyan doesn't understand Crowley. There is no Crowleyan religion. As far as there's a Crowleyan movement, it's called, they call themselves Thelemites rather than Crowleyans, because they don't want to build Crowley up into an idol, which is the last thing he wanted. What he wanted was for people to use his methods to discover the truth of their own inner nature, which is different for every person. That's the meaning of Crowley's mantra: every man and every woman is a star. You got to find the star within yourself. And Parsons found the star within himself, and that allowed him to be tremendously creative when nobody else, except Goddard, I mean, I was getting Goddard confused with the French movie director. Since Goddard was an American, it would be pronounced Goddard, wouldn't it? Goddard was the only one besides Jack Parsons who realized the potentials of space travel and the fact that we could do it in this century. Parsons was a lot more creative than Goddard and his work. Well, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena is not only founded by Parsons, but some people claim the initials were deliberately picked to have his initials in them, Jack Parsons, JPL. And the Aerojet Corporation, which he created, makes the solid fuels used in all of our moon launchings, our shuttles. The whole space program really depends on Jack Parsons. That's why he has a crater on the moon named after him. And he couldn't have made those breakthroughs without getting out of... Hell, when I was young, I remember adults telling me when I was a teenager, what are you reading that science fiction crap for? You know, that stuff was all impossible. But I was going to a technical high school, and I knew that it was all possible. I didn't know how soon, but I knew it would be possible someday, so I was fascinated by it. Jack Parsons had the visions to say, hey, it's possible right now. We just got to put our money and our energy into it, and we can do it. And by the time he died, there were rockets all over the damn place. And he died in 52, and in 1969, the first man walked on the moon. If Parsons had lived longer, he would have made even more contributions to space science. I don't know what turned Parsons on to Crowley originally. I have a few guesses. It could have been Liber Oz, which Crowley wrote because somebody complained that his books were too hard to understand. So he wrote a one-page summary of all of his ideas, in which almost every word is one syllable. There are a couple of two-syllable words in it, but most of it is one word, one-syllable words. It begins, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, which is all one syllables. And it goes on, man has the right to live as he will, to love as he will, to create art as he will, to create science as he will, to dress as he will, and that goes on like that. Mostly, as I said, one-syllable words. That might have been what turned Parsons on. Well, maybe it was Book 4, which is the most rational scientific account of mysticism ever written. Crowley begins by saying we live in a world in which there's a lot of suffering. The first thing we notice is the amount of suffering that we endure and the amount of suffering going on around us. So the major question of philosophy is how can we escape suffering? And then he describes yoga step by step as a series of techniques for abolishing suffering by detaching yourself from mechanical conditioned reactions within the nervous system. And then he goes on to explain magic as a series of techniques to make yoga work faster. That could have appealed very much to somebody with a background like Parsons. And then again, maybe it was just one of Crowley's, one of Crowley's novels, like Diary of a Dope Fiend, which might have appealed to somebody with a chemical background. I got interested in psychedelics because of a conservative philosopher named Russell Kirk, who in one of his books mentioned Aldous Huxley's experiments with mescaline and said this proved the existence of heaven and hell. I wasn't sure it proved the existence of heaven and hell, but what I observed was that it showed that consciousness depends on the chemistry of the brain. And that's what got me interested in psychedelic research, because the idea that consciousness depends on the chemistry of the brain is a natural thought. To me, I had basically a scientific education to start with. And so that could have appealed very much to Parsons with his background. But however he got interested in Crowley was like a key that opened a lot of locks for Jack Parsons. The idea that the Crowley system is black magic derives from a lot of fundamental misunderstandings. The only possible intelligent definition of black magic is using psychic power to harm people, putting curses on people, trying to make them sick, trying to kill them, sticking pins in voodoo dolls, that kind of thing. That has nothing to do with Crowley's system. The Crowley system is considered black magic by fundamentalists and people of that ilk because it's entirely devoid of Christian emphasis. It's ecumenical. It includes Taoism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and it includes Christianity too, although Crowley tried to hide that as he got older because he got more and more hostile to Christianity. But if you do some of Crowley's rituals, you'll get a deeper understanding of what the mystical level of Christianity. I got my deepest insight into the symbolism of the crucifixion doing a Crowley ritual. It includes the world, all the religions of the world, but it's not limited to any one of them. And to fundamentalists, that is the great satanic blasphemy, not putting Christianity above all other religions. The New Age, the reason they're so hostile to the New Age is it doesn't say Christianity is the one true path. The New Age says learn from all the religions. That's what Crowley was saying too, except he didn't like religions. He was saying learn from all the practices. Don't accept any of the dogmas, but try the practices and see where they get you. Try meditating, try praying, try yoga, try drugs, try everything that shamans and wizards and yogis have been doing from the dawn of history and see where it gets you, and use scientific skepticism about the results. Crowley never believed any of the supernatural, the supernatural entities he contacted. He realized that they were all projections of parts of himself, and so he learned from them what you can, but don't believe everything they tell you. Some of them are liars. That's a very central part of Crowley's teachings, and Parsons understood that too. Parsons got involved in this idea of the moon child from one of Crowley's novels, and the idea is to create an infant who will be born all through the 9 months of pregnancy. There will be all these magical in quotes and other influences to separate the child from normal earthly influences and make them more compatible with life in outer space, because Parsons saw the future of humanity as being in outer space. And he wanted to create a child who would be equipped to live in outer space. Well, since then, we found out that going into outer space creates a mutation in consciousness anyway. 85% of the American astronauts and the Soviet cosmonauts have all had mystical experiences. People who go into zero gravity experience the same kind of change in consciousness that you get on marijuana or hashish. This is only one of the many higher levels of consciousness. It's nothing like LSD or the psychedelics, but it's a definite mutation in consciousness. And Parsons was trying to create a child who would be born with that kind of consciousness and would never be dragged down by the... I can't help quoting Timothy Leary again. Gravity is the enemy, levity is the salvation. Levitate, go higher, don't get pulled down, don't get dragged down, don't be too grave, don't be too serious. And Parsons understood that. It's time for us to get used to outer space. And it's happening, whether Parsons was responsible or not. Some people think his Mojave Venus working was not completed properly, and that's why we're having all these weird UFO phenomena. Whether that's true or not, we are getting ready for outer space just by the simple fact that so many millions of people believe they've had outer space contacts already. They're turning into moon children in the Parsons sense. And of course, those who have very rigid belief systems find it absolutely terrifying, and all they can remember is that they were raped by little green monsters from outer space. Well, that's not quite what happened, in my opinion, but it's the only sense they can make out of this kind of experience of encountering extraterrestrial intelligence. As Jodie Foster, the scriptwriter, or whoever says in Contact, if we're the only intelligent beings in a universe this size, that's an awful waste of space. Parsons' major occult educational background came through the Ordo Templi Orientis, which was founded or revived or whatever. In these subjects, there are always alternative versions of what happened. But sometime in the 1890s, a couple of German Freemasons named Karl Kellner and Theodor Reuss decided to create a Masonic academy, which would be a kind of central office in which all the different Masonic traditions could be rationalized, synthesized, and the differences between various orders of Freemasonry could be abolished. Well, what they created didn't satisfy any of the different schools of Freemasonry, and did not become a Masonic academy, so they changed its name to the Ordo Templi Orientis. And it was their idea of what was the most sound and important and revolutionary aspects of Freemasonry. And they got a lot of disciples all over Europe and some in England. One of them was Wynne Westcott, who was a member of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, a Rosicrucian society in England, in which Crowley got his early education in occultism. And in 1912, approximately, Theodor Reuss came to Crowley and told him, "You've written a book in which you reveal the secret of the 9th degree of the Ordo Templi Orientis. Why have you done that?" And Crowley said, "I don't know any. I didn't reveal any secret of the 9th degree because I don't know what that is." And Reuss said, "Well, you've published it very clearly." And he showed him the chapter in a book of Crowley's with the humorous title, "The Book of Lies, Falsely So Called," which is a wonderful title because of the title tells you it's a book of lies. The subtitle tells you it's not a book of lies. And you got to figure out whether to believe the title or the subtitle. And when Crowley looked at the chapter Roy showed him, he realized suddenly he had been a 33rd degree Freemason at that point already. He suddenly realized that the Ordo Templi Orientis really did have what was the most central and important part of Freemasonry. So he accepted the 9th degree, and when Royce died, he appointed Crowley to the 10th degree, which is the outer head of the Ordo Templi Orientis. And the Ordo Templi Orientis ever since then has been pretty much under Crowley's influence one way, to some degree or another. And anybody who wants to find out the central secret of what Freemasonry, Illuminism, Rosicrucianism, and all the occult traditions of the West, alchemy, what they're all about, Crowley tells you quite clearly. It's in one of the chapters of the Book of Lies. All you got to do is decide which chapter it is and decipher it. I think that Parsons' work in the Crowley system, which, as I mentioned, Crowley calls scientific Illuminism. It's very important to note the adjective as well as the noun, scientific Illuminism. That's Crowley majored in organic chemistry at Cambridge, and Parsons was basically a chemist before he was even an engineer. The Crowleyan system is particularly valuable to creative people, whether in sciences or the arts. Parsons wasn't the only student of Crowley that made major contributions. J.W.N. Sullivan was a major mathematician who wrote absolutely the most brilliant book on Beethoven that anybody has ever written. he was able to make the jump from mathematics to music and to write a really brilliant book about music. There was another mathematician who was, that was Norman Mudd of Cambridge. And I think to a great extent the whole psychedelic revolution was heavily influenced by Crowley, which is why the government is trying so hard to destroy any record of it. There's hardly anybody alive in the 1990s who has read the literature of LSD research when it was legal. When LSD research was legal, there was one report after another of absolutely astonishing results. Timothy Leary, the archdemon of all of them, he reversed the recidivism rate of criminals in the Massachusetts prison system. The average is that 90% of all released convicts are back in jail within 1 year. In Leary's therapy group, using psychedelic drugs and mystical readings, 90% of them were still out on the streets after 1 year instead of being back in prison. He entirely reversed the usual pattern. They were curing schizophrenics with LSD. People found they could learn languages much quicker with LSD than they could with any other technique. They cured alcoholics. It's astonishing how many successful scientific reports there were on LSD before the government made it illegal.
Crowley has always appealed to me because he stands out among all the great mystics of the world, being the most egregious case. There are some pretty weird mystics in all traditions, and some that look like they were kind of crazy, but there's nobody quite compares to Crowley. Mary D'Este Sturgis, who was Crowley's mistress around 1911 and wrote the introduction to his book 4, she said other religious leaders say, "Believe me." Crowley says, "Don't believe me." And that's what I find most attractive about him, is his constant skepticism. And don't believe me. Try the exercises and find out for yourself. He studied most of the schools of consciousness alteration that existed in his time. He studied yoga with the Hindus and the Buddhists, and various different types of yoga, Hatha yoga, Gnana yoga, Raja yoga, Tantra yoga. He learned a lot about Taoism in China, became an I Ching expert long before there were any others in the Western world who knew anything about I Ching. Did his own translation of the Tao Te Ching. Studied a little Sufism in North Africa, evidently. He was the leading authority in his time in the Western occult tradition. And he picked up bits and snatches of all sorts of other things in his travels around the world, including a great deal about shamanic traditions that use drugs to alter consciousness. He knew more about that than anybody before the 1960s. So all in all, reading Crowley's books, he gives you, most of his books, he gives you a lot of exercises along with the theory. And if you start doing the exercises that Crowley gives you, you find your consciousness does alter. And then you find the universe alters, which, of course, is inevitable because the only universe you know is the universe in your consciousness. So this is kind of confusing to some people. But this combination of do the work and don't believe anybody's dogmas, draw your own conclusions after you've done the work. I like that approach. Crowley put it into a poem once, which I'm fond of. We place no reliance on virgin or pigeon. Our method is science. Our aim is religion. I think that's a terrific approach. especially when you look around at so many things that are called New Age that are so gullible and medieval. They're people who you feel you could easily sell them the Brooklyn Bridge if you were inclined. They go and get the savings out of the bank and hand it to you right away. Compared to the gullibility and superstition in most New Age centers, Crowley is really refreshing, like cold water in the face, really wakes you up. There's a lot of interesting stories about Crowley, and I don't think there is yet a really good biography of Crowley. They're all biased. Most of them are biased against him. His enemies got into print before his friends. There are several books that portray Crowley as a raving monster, demented maniac, sadist, and whatnot. And then his friends or admirers started writing biographies that are equally prejudiced and try to portray him as the magus of the new aeon, the utterer of the word of the law, which will transform the whole planet to higher consciousness sometime in the very near future. We are supposed to have entered, according to the Orthodox Crowleyans, we are supposed to have entered the Aeon of Horus in 1904. And if you ask what is the evidence, well, the world certainly has gotten a lot weirder since 1904. When the Aeon of Horus fully manifests itself is an open question. Is it going to take 500 years, or is it going to happen in 2012 like everybody else's prophecies? Well, I don't know. But meanwhile, we've got all this literature about Crowley, some of it absolutely incredible. One of the most widely published stories about Crowley is the time he and his son McGregor went into a hotel room in Paris and drew a pentagram and invoked the devil. And in the morning, McGregor was found dead of a heart attack, and Crowley was off his head and had to spend 6 months in a mental hospital and never quite regained his intellectual faculties. That story has appeared in quite a few books. The fascinating thing about it is it first appeared in a work of fiction, a novel by Dennis Wheatley. Dennis Wheatley was the head of the Double Cross Bureau of English Intelligence. Crowley was a part-time employee of MI5. Each one of them seemed to have been highly suspicious of the other. Wheatley had a tendency to believe that any conspiracy he wasn't supervising personally was the work of the devil. And, well, the Double Cross Bureau had some real weirdos in it anyway. Besides Wheatley, Ian Fleming worked in the Double Cross Bureau. You see what kind of rich fantasy life he had when you read the James Bond novels. And Alan Turing, who invented the Turing machine problem, also worked there. Anyway, Wheatley's invention in the novel called For the Devil a Bride, about Crowley and his son invoking the devil. There are lots of weaknesses in this story. For instance, Crowley never spent any time in a mental hospital in France. And for another thing, his son McGregor never showed any interest in magic or in Crowley's occult studies. And for a third thing, Crowley didn't die of a heart attack in a hotel room in Paris. And the most clinching argument of all is there never was a son named McGregor Crowley. The whole thing was made up out of whole cloth. There's not one fact in that. Now, that's typical of a lot of the legends about Crowley. Once you start examining them, you find out they create either by Crowley out of his wicked sense of humor, or by his enemies out of their total lack of humor, and it's very hard to find out what to believe. I didn't. It took me a long time to decide whether or not to believe he worked for English intelligence, but the evidence is accumulated enough that I believe that. Although it sounds like something he might have invented, he did invent some pretty tall tales about himself. Crowley evidently worked in the propaganda division. Among other things, he proposed the sign that's identified with Winston Churchill, the V for Victory sign, which is evoking the powers of Set, the Egyptian donkey-headed deity that Crowley regarded as a good mischievous spirit to set against your enemies. Crowley did various other things for English intelligence. All the details are far from clear. Crowley's psychic and propaganda war with McGregor Mathers was typical of the kookiness of the occult world. McGregor Mathers arose to the position of outer head of the Golden Dawn, which was the primary magical order in England at that time. Yeats and several others decided Mathers had become a tyrant and perhaps a megalomaniac. They unseated him and formed a rival Golden Dawn, claiming he was unfit to lead. Crowley sided with Mathers, and Yeats developed the opinion that Crowley had set demons upon him because of his rebellion against Mathers. Then Crowley and Mathers had a quarrel, and they each accused the other of setting demons upon them. But they finally got to court because Crowley in his magazine, Equinox, started publishing all the secret rituals of the Golden Dawn. He announced that the secret chiefs had authorized him to do this. This is the kind of thing that cannot be judged in a court of law because the secret chiefs did not take the form in space-time where they can testify in the courtroom. The secret chiefs exist only where the square root of -1 exists, or the White Rabbit or Alice in Wonderland. You got to be in a special state to contact the secret chiefs, and no court is made equipped to do it. So if one guy says the secret chief told me this, and somebody else said the secret chief told me the opposite, there's no evidential way of judging between them. You just decide which one you think is crazier than the other. So anyway, Crowley claimed the secret chiefs authorized him to publish these rituals. Mathers tried to stop it. The trial turned into all sorts of irrelevant issues, such as whether Mathers had or had not alleged that he was the reincarnation of King Charles I, which Mathers didn't want to answer on the witness stand for fear of prejudicing the jury, but was compelled to admit he had at times claimed to be the reincarnation of Charles I. There wasn't Charles II, like you know. And there were various innuendos about Crowley's sex life, which Crowley enjoyed very much, although most of the other people did not enjoy it. Crowley really had a weak spot for, he didn't mind how much trouble he got into or how much pain he caused those around him. That he had a chance to do something that would shock the British public, he'd go ahead and do it. And the most amazing thing about his life is that he stayed out of jail. He lived to be 72 and never spent a day in jail. It's amazing for a person with his temperament. Everybody I know who remotely reminds me of Crowley has spent time in jail. You can't have that attitude of deliberately flaunting society's rules. I think Sinead O'Connor is going to end up in jail eventually, for instance. Crowley was sort of a cross between Sinead O'Connor and Madonna in a male form. Well, as a matter of fact, that's another of the interesting Crowley legends. Crowley predicted he would reincarnate to carry on the work of initiating the new aeon, only when he came back it would be as a woman. And you'd be surprised how many women I've met who claim they are Crowley reincarnated. It's a long, long list. The one I find most plausible has never made the claim. That's Madonna. She has her own shtick. She doesn't need the claims people really do. She's got a big enough audience already. The most fascinating to me of the occult side of Crowley, there's many sides to Crowley. You can look at Crowley entirely as a linguistic philosopher in the tradition of Wittgenstein, and went even further than Wittgenstein. There's a book called Portable Darkness, an anthology of Crowley's writings, which the editor pretty much interprets Crowley as a linguistic philosopher chiefly and makes everything else secondary. But if you do want to look into, there's many ways of looking at Crowley. I like to look at him as a scientist in the consciousness alteration field, a pioneer, a forerunner of Tim Leary and Stan Groff and John Lilly and all the great consciousness researchers of the last 30 years. Crowley was 50 years ahead of everybody else. But on the occult side, the most fascinating thing is the Book of the Law, which Crowley was, first of all, one of the most notorious practical jokers of his time. He was responsible for numerous hoaxes. It's very difficult to tell when he's kidding and when he's serious. His books are all written. That's part of his way of keeping you on the qui-vive, making it arousing curiosity so you will try the experiments, and also keeping you from just accepting things as dogma. He's constantly playing games in his style. Is this serious or is this another of his jokes? And he did perform some outstanding hoaxes. One of the most famous was the Hail Mary hoax, which was a book of hymns to the Blessed Virgin, allegedly written by a nun. It turned out to be written by Aleister Crowley. And he explained after the hoax was revealed that he wrote the poems to Isis, but he thought since the Virgin Mary is just the modern version of Isis, it could be just as easily presented that way and would have a bigger audience. And he lots of fascinating hoaxes that he was involved in. And then there's the Book of the Law, which is allegedly a communication from higher intelligence, about which Crowley was very cryptic. He said he got it from his holy guardian angel. He told one disciple, the holy guardian angel is not in any sense your higher self, like in theosophy and a lot of occult movements. It's a separate being of much higher intelligence than a human. He told another disciple the holy guardian angel was just a metaphor for your own unconscious. So he directly contradicted himself depending on who he was talking to. And he was a well-known hoaxer. Nonetheless, everything he ever wrote about the Book of the Law, he insisted he was serious this time. He was not hoaxing. Of course, the best hoaxes all begin that way. I'm not performing a hoax this time. I'm being serious. He insists the Book of the Law is a revelation from higher intelligence. It's not a hoax, and that he has suffered throughout his whole life from the duty to speak the truth as revealed in this book, no matter how much trouble it made for him. And that is, I suppose, the major koan in Crowley's system, which is called Thelema. He didn't want it named after himself. He was terrified that he'd been back in 2,000 years and find Crowleyanity had become as reactionary as Christianity. So he insisted on it being called Thelema, so at least his name would not be disgraced, whatever his disciples did with the movement. And in the Thelemic system, there are koans, just as in Zen Buddhism. There are points in Zen, you're studying Zen, the Rosh she gives you a co-ed to work on, riddle like what is the sound of one hand clapping, or who's the master who makes the grass green. Crowley has co-eds built into his system, and I presented as co-eds. You just run into them and you suddenly stop. And what am I going to do about this? Am I going to believe him? Am I going to think it's a joke? Is there a hidden meaning? And the big co-ed is, do you believe in the book of the law, or is it just the one joke that he kept a straight face about for most of his life? And it's fascinating how different people react to that. I find it fascinating because the book of the law does seem it's just spooky enough to keep you guessing where it came from. Israel Regardie, who studied with Crowley in the 20s and later became a Reichian psychotherapist in Los Angeles, Regardie suggests that Crowley had 9 personalities at various levels of the psyche, and the deepest level was, he gives names to these in terms of Crowley's magical titles, and the deepest level was Awas, which is not only the deepest level of Crowley's unconscious, if I understand this, it's the deepest level of the human psyche. It is the collective mind of humanity, and that was speaking through the Book of the Law, according to Regardie's interpretation. And the Book of Lies is one of my favorites of Crowley's books. I don't know, it's hard to say which is weirder and funnier and more mysterious, the Book of the Law or the Book of Lies. I guess the Book of the Law has more perpetual shock in it. Every time you go back to it, you get shocked again and shook up a little bit more. The Book of Lies is a lot funnier, but it requires careful study. It's got so many different kinds of jokes in it. Every chapter, the number of the chapter is important. There are Kabbalistic jokes about the number of the chapter in every chapter. There are jokes within jokes and anagrams and acrostics, and every conceivable way of saying 10 things at the same time and keeping you confused about which ones are serious and which ones are jokes, and is there a difference? And many times you'll find a passage where the surface meaning is conventionally religious, well, not in the ordinary sense, conventionally mystic. It could be Lao Tzu or Buddha or some Sufi, it could be any great mystic. And then you suddenly discover there's a dirty joke hidden under that. And you think, boy, what a mixed up mind he had. He was a real weird, what a weird sense of humor. Then you find the dirty joke has behind that an allegory, which takes you back to the mystical level again. And then you find out you can interpret it in terms of Freudian or Jungian psychology, and that Crowley obviously understood that and wanted you to see that. Then you wonder how many more levels you can find. And it gets funnier and funnier. It is very intellectual, but it's very funny too. It's very intellectual humor, like Lewis Carroll's mathematical logic, in which he proves some dowagers are thistles. He has a perfectly logical proof of that. And the Book of Lies is that kind of humor. He even wrote a commentary on it, which is even funnier. A commentary in one place, he talks about some of the logical errors he committed in that chapter, deliberately violating the rules of logic, just to confuse the people further. And he says, after listening to errors in logic, he says, to explain this further would set the book beyond the understanding of the common reader in Oshkosh for whom I am writing. And of course, the common person in Oshkosh is not going to understand more than 3 lines of this book. I think I place it pretty much in the same general area as Finnegan's Wake. It's not as great as an artistic achievement as Finnegan's Wake, but it's equally funny and equally inexhaustible. And
the more you dive into it, the more you find. You can go on for years and years, just like with Finnegan's Wake, finding more and more meanings and more jokes. Get a hold of Magic, which is 3 parts of book 4. And don't ask me why the publisher left out the 4th part.